Batu, Barada, Nikto.
You must remember those words.
Gordon's alive.
You know what the Turing test is?
I know Kung Fu.
Dead or alive, you are coming with me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Stories Out of Time and Space. I'm your regular host, Scott Weatherly, and as always, I'm joined by my partner in law enforcement, Julian Darius. Julian, how are you doing? You okay?
Well, I was okay. But we are here to talk about the masterpiece known as RoboCop 3. How are you feeling, Scott?
Confused, I would actually say. I'm a little confused by this one. It isn't great, but there is something about it I kind of like, and which we'll get into. But yes, we are here to talk about 1993's RoboCop 3. A quick little oversummary. RoboCop saves the day once more. This time, half man, half machine robot takes on ruthless developers, OCP, who want to evict some people from their land and their houses. This stars doesn't star Peter Weller. Murphy / Robo has now been replaced by Robert John Burke, but we have returning Nancy Allen. We no longer we have Johnson returning as the only sort of member of OCP that seems to have survived all three films. Rip Torn is the new CEO, and then a host of faces that you're like, oh, I know that face. Including Mako, playing Kenimitsu, the Japanese, the head of the Japanese company trying to take over OCP. John Castle playing Paul Daggett. CCH Pounder. Stephen Root. Daniel von Bargen. So on and so forth. There's lots of other sort of... even Shane Black appears in this as a bit of a cameo.
Yeah, Bradley Whitfield is in this too.
Yeah.
A very young.
Yeah, that's
Pre-West
that is.
Wing.
Yeah, Bradley Whitfield, who I love Bradley Whitfield because again I know him from things like I don't know what's the West Wing, but Cabin in the Woods and Handmaid's Tale,
Get
and
Out.
Get Out. Yeah, so he's an excellent sort of character actor. So yeah, lots of people that I sort of know, and a child sidekick, which we'll get to. So anyway, yeah. So
Yes.
PG-13. Let's talk. The first thing I want to talk about is the decision that was made at this point because, as we've sort of said, both RoboCop 1 and RoboCop 2 are relative. Well, 2 possibly more so than 1, but are hard R movies. They are violent. They are sort of disturbing, and they're gruesome.
And defined by their violence.
Yes, I mean the Verhoeven thing of the violence being sort of like the extreme is sort of part of the key, and introducing like Frank Miller and stuff for the second one, you know, with everything kind of
Blood, more blood.
yeah, hookers and blood. Which to be fair is probably an '80s album. There's an '80s hair metal band that's just called Hookers and Blood. But it feels like that's an intrinsic part of that is that the old Detroit is a violent, dirty place, and you know this is the OCP is part of that. So, because of the popularity of those first 2 films, a decision was made to go for a PG-13 rating for RoboCop 3.
Now, let's be clear. There was an animated RoboCop series
Which we'll
between
get to.
1 and 2. So there was an animated RoboCop series, and there were toys.
Yep.
And they were looking at numbers that showed RoboCop is really popular with kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and getting lots of feedback about how terrible that was and all of this, and parents groups upset, and so
Oh yeah, protests.
yeah,
Like certain things were protested and stuff. Robocop 2 was protest. I didn't realize it was protested at the cinemas. At some of its releases,
mhm.
parents groups turned up to protest the film, saying this is not suitable for children. And the studio were like, "We agree. That's why it's an R. Like
Right.
it's on you, not us."
Yeah, and my parents, among many others, promptly ignored those protests.
Yeah,
And I fell in love with blood and hookers.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, okay, so I mean, obviously that is a terrible mistake. This movie even kind of parodies that with its little toy ad
yeah, yeah. Johnny
for the
Rehab.
goons, Johnny Rehab. Yeah.
I love the Johnny
Uh
Rehab advert. It's one of my favorite things in this.
yeah, it's good. And they even have, I mean, the little girl finds a RoboCop doll, like,
And she
obviously,
has an Ed 209
yeah.
figure as well. Yeah, yeah.
So obviously, like, they're leaning into this, and
Mm.
that satire is fine, but it's a little painful to see when you've toned down the original. I mean,
Yes.
can you imagine how effective that would be in
Yeah.
a movie that kept the violence and the satire?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this film is weird in that it has this kind of all the elements are there apart from the blood and the gore. And it
Well,
kind of weirdly feels neutered. Oh, the budget is lower as well. Like the budget is evidently lower as well. Sorry, you're gonna say
well,
something?
let's start with general impressions.
Mm.
You know, I think there is a germ of a really good movie here.
Yes, I agree.
This is not a good movie.
Mm-mm.
It's not the train wreck that people make it out to be, but it's not good.
No.
I mean, it's not Halle Berry Catwoman bad by any means, right? But it's not an adequate movie. Um, I would say like every scene has something that really bothers me. Almost every scene has something that I'm just pulled out of the action because I'm just like, why did you stage it this way? Why did
Yeah.
you not keep this element straight? Why did you make this choice? Why did an actor play it this way? It's like in that very low budget way, where you're kind of like watching a low budget movie and there's something that bothers you in every scene. This is
Hmm.
one of those movies. Having said that, the basic elements of the plot of a Japanese takeover of OCP, facing bankruptcy and, RoboCop going against OCP, um, is where they should take this. I think, I'd be more interested in RoboCop and OCP being bankrupt due to, some of the lawsuits at the end of RoboCop 2. Maybe that brought down the CEO.
Yeah.
A little more kind of backstory about that. And I think they glamorize the cops too much. They go to a great degree to show that the cops aren't the bad guys. It's just the corporation in a way that I think, you know, really does not fit facts. But yeah, so it kind of goes off the rails, but there's a germ of a really good end to a RoboCop trilogy here.
Mm.
It just is not executed correctly.
No,
What
I
what are
think
your overall thoughts?
much like what you say is there is this germ of an idea, which we'll get to the whole Frank Miller involvement and what he tried to do and some of that stuff from what I understand. Um, and I actually like the thing I noticed about it watching it this time that kind of hit me. This is closer. This is a closer sequel to the first film in certain ways than RoboCop 2. Um, like the precinct is closer in sort of like the design. You know, they have jokes like Cecil is back, sort of covering the desk sergeant, and there's a lot of elements. I'm like, oh, they're calling directly back to that first film, and so I like a lot of that. And it has a similar sort of it doesn't have what I always thought that was the cartoonishness of the second one, which is fine and it went and it worked, but they've tried to pull it back in again, tried to rein it in a little bit, and so I appreciate some of that. but then it keeps doing things that you're like, you've tried to go back to the first film, but you're now making like TV pilot level decisions that don't make any sense. Like, like you said, like you look at a scene and you go, oh, you thought this was badass, or you thought this was the right thing to do, or the right way to film this. And I'm thinking like, oh, Fred Decker, you made choices to film it in this way or to do this scene or whatever. And so by the end of it, and again, the special effects, like we praised the special effects for the first two films of how well they stood up. The practical effects, the body horror effects were brilliant. This has got some of the worst, like blue screen, green screen, sort of like, others I've seen in many, many films.
It feels like Superman 4.
Yes, it does. That's a really good comparison. Yes, it just feels like they've gone, we're not really going to pay for everything we think we should have. We're just going to sort of copy bits and pieces. So yeah, it doesn't have the polish of previous films, and it feels cheap in many respects. There are scenes where and I will jump around, but there are scenes that should feel more crowded than they do. Like the whole finale of this film, this whole place of Paradise Heights. Over, like it should feel like crowded, and the police come in, but it's like four cars. It's like four, and a couple of cops come out, and I'm like, this doesn't feel like,
The Detroit Police Department is a lot smaller than you thought. I mean, it's
yes,
basically a line of cops. Like there were.
yeah.
Did you know that Detroit only has 20 police officers? I didn't know that.
That's exactly it. And I think, even when like Dr. Lazarus, which again as a name kind of really bothered me, but even like when she
Yep.
does that sort of like call out to the citizenry of Detroit, of old Detroit, like this is what's happening. OCP's lying to you. Da, da. I'm like, right, is this going to cause a rise up? Are we going to see like a whole host of people turning up to support, these people and the police against OCP? Like the people going to turn against OCP? Nope, never happens. Nothing happens because they can't afford the extras. Like it's quite clear. Right. And that sort of is how I feel about this. Is it's neutered in both rating and in budget. And so as you say, so I keep going, oh, this is cool. This bit's a good idea. And then it kind of fails. So it's kind of frustrating as a film. It's, as you said, it's not the disaster I think it's often made out to be, but it's not a patch on what we've had previously.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say that even the plot, while there's a germ of a good movie here, that plot really goes off the rails. And the central dynamics of that plot, I mean, which should be RoboCop versus OCP,
Yeah.
with the cops sort of like in the middle, like they've been very loyal to RoboCop, especially in RoboCop 2, kind of intuitively. And on the other hand, they're OCP employees, and cops can be heroes, they can also be thugs, right?
Mm-hmm.
That dynamic needs to be played up, right? Instead, the cops ship to one side, and you've got these kind of like dime store Nazis, that are
Yeah.
introduced that are kind of running the show, and you're sort of like, why are they running the show again? How did they get to be the bad guys? How did this become the final showdown? I mean, even like the Japanese takeover isn't done very well. And you have this very silly, Japanese ninja robots that we'll get to eventually. Yeah.
Well, again, it's all these good ideas, isn't it? It's like, we know that the late 80s, early 90s there was, if you watch like the influence of, basically the American economy is going to be taken over by the Japanese. That was the fear,
The 80s paranoia of Japan, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Like, Black Rain, Rising Sun, Robocop 3, like you can name loads of films where it's, the Japanese, the fear of the Japanese.
Anxiety.
Exactly. Yeah, it seeps through. So that's
It
there's an
was
idea. You go,
for
cool.
the younger people, they were the killer bees or the MS-13 of their time.
That's it. Yeah,
Americans love to be freaked out about shit that doesn't exist.
that's right. Acid rain and
Yeah,
yeah, and the Japanese economy were two things I was led to believe were going to be a lot more important in my life than
much like quicksand.
exactly much like
Yeah.
quicksand. Um, yeah. So
There were going to be ninja fights on every block.
yeah,
That's the one thing I knew from American
yeah.
movies in the 80s.
Frank Miller led me to believe that that foot ninja or like cloak ninja were going to be a big problem in big cities in the 80s. Didn't appear to be a factor, but that's it. Like, yeah, so you've got the Japanese anxiety. You then have this thing about gentrification or the corporation or corporate takeover of small communities and those things. It has all these ideas that feel like something, but they never kind of fully materialize. Don't fully sort of materialize into anything. However, there are still really good. Like the thing is, like it's the there's weirdly like the minutia in other bits works. So all of the rehab guys, these rehabilitation officers or rehab, what are they called? Johnny Rehabs, the rehabs. They are all soldiers redeployed from the Amazon wars
Hmm.
that we heard about in the first and second film.
Hmm.
Which I was like, oh, cool. Like that's a running thread. Like, this is actually a really cool idea that they're like, oh, the Amazon war's over, so we're actually going to take those soldiers and OCP is going to use them. So OCP was clearly involved in the Amazon wars, and now they're bringing these guys back, and they're going to use them as these for clearing zones and stuff.
Well, and I do think that, ironically, given that list of stuff that this movie kind of touches on, but doesn't really ultimately weave into its plot in a meaningful way,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that it does much better is militarization of the police, which
Mm,
I know is something you've written about.
mm. Yeah, and I think the rehabs are a really good example of that. But even like the actual police,
Right.
you know, the Detroit police have that factor. Um,
But that's part of my disappointment too. It's sort of like you give that stuff to the police, focus on how, like the police have been turned into the rehab force, right? As opposed to
or divide,
creating
have a
this
divide in the
straw
police.
man.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
needs to
right,
be a
exactly.
divide within the police. Like almost, I mean, this is, when was the LA riots? They're like,
Yeah,
like 93,
early
94.
90s.
Yeah. So, you're coming up to that point. There was already racial tensions in Los Angeles and other parts. Like, have that acknowledged, like, have it split in the police that there's, like, there is this kind of like part of the police that wants to wear the Punisher's skull as a bloody emblem of things. And there's others going, no, that's not how this works. Like, we are there to protect and serve.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it would be better if it was a bit more ingrained. Like they've been bought off by OCP rather than um,
Well, it's interesting that you say this is more a sequel to RoboCop than to RoboCop 2. And I think there's truth to that. I mean, so it brings back, especially with the television broadcast, it's like, give us 3 minutes, we'll give you the world is brought back.
yeah,
I'll buy that for $1 is brought back. They ignore the fun stuff of RoboCop 2. Um, I think, obviously I'm biased as the world's biggest RoboCop 2 fan, but I think to its detriment.
I
And
I agree.
it seems to me that the end of RoboCop 2, given what this film wants to do and what I think it should do, given where the franchise was headed, and look, kudos for them pulling off the RoboCop versus OCP thing, right?
Mm,
I mean, it was 3 movies, but a lot more years into Terminator before they were finally like, we're not going to kick the can down the road. Here's Judgment Day, right?
hmm
Um, a lot of these franchises have trouble really executing what's inevitable,
mm.
um, because it's hard to do and would require a big budget. And it fails here, right?
Yeah,
But I mean, kudos to them for trying. But it seems, RoboCop 2, yeah, the attempt to insulate the CEO doesn't work, especially because he's seen leaving with the woman who they,
yeah,
tried to
yeah.
pin it on. There's been a wild massacre, and the other thing is that corporations are fundamentally unstable. They're
Mm.
vulnerable to takeover attempts, they're vulnerable to CEO changes and things like this. And, you know, um, 5 years is a long time in corporate history. So, you could depict all of that. And the other thing that this movie misses entirely as an opportunity is that at the end of RoboCop 2, and I have to admit, I'm such a RoboCop 2 fan that after our discussion, I ended it by watching RoboCop 2 again. Um, I'm ridiculous. But, one thing that occurred to me is that he never gets his directives back in RoboCop 2. When he is reset by
Mm.
that electrocution,
It's all
it
clear.
actually wipes clear. It says no directives found. So the end of RoboCop 2 is perfectly setting up he can now go against OCP, right?
Yeah.
The only reason he's serving the public trust and upholding the law is because he's Alex Murphy and he respects those things. Here he's got those directives back and he's encumbered by them.
Including number 4. Yeah, the fourth directive
Yes.
is back. Yeah.
And it seems to me like a RoboCop unencumbered by those things would be perfect. You're like, oh, there's going to be consequences for that, right?
Mm.
He's going to be able to go against OCP now. We get that story, but we don't have any of the follow up. Like there was an easier narrative path to this.
Well, I think that's the thing is yeah, I agree. And that's what I'm saying. Like this almost feels like, you know, not so much ignore RoboCop 2, but like, yeah, it clearly is looking directly at RoboCop 1 and says, oh, we want to follow Fred Decker, and that is going, I want to follow that. That's the film I want to follow.
But with more
Um,
kids.
yes, with a child, with a child sidekick, which we'll get to. And the other thing as well is like we should say that like this is another Frank Miller story.
Mm-hmm.
Not again. So basically, we the I didn't read them because I had in the past. I skimmed through the two scripts, RoboCop 2 and the comic versions and stuff.
Yeah.
RoboCop 2, and so if you want to see like the violent version of this, like go find those. Um, because at the end of his version of RoboCop 2, like RoboCop sweeps up Lois and kisses her. So I was like, oh, okay, there's all kinds of like although we'd said like, oh no, this is sort of before Miller became nuts, there are definitely elements of it in the comic the version of the script that was turned into the comic where I'm reading it and looking at it and going like, this is some of the bad choices that Miller will go on to make in many of his other comics. Um, but in this, basically, all the bits that there's a lot of bits that didn't make it into 2 that are in that
Mm-hmm.
script that he then says, "Cool, I'll just use them in 3."
Mm-hmm.
And so, there's all kinds of bits and pieces that sort of make it across. So it does kind of feel a little bit. There isn't a RoboCop 2, but the woman there's another sort of psychologist kind of character. There's all these other little bits, and it feels very repetitive. So I'm glad they sort of stripped some of it out because it's not good. RoboCop Last Stand is not a great script or a great comic either, for that matter. Um, so I'm glad they sort of dropped that. So Fred Decker, who friends with Shane Black, which is but and also sort of wrote and directed Monster Squad, which is what I know him from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, So yeah, they made choices to try and sort of like circumvent some of the Frank Millery stuff. Um, but in doing so, like you say, they kind of reset things in a weird way. Because let's just to use an example, when Robo's outside of the church and he's facing off against the rehab guys, it's his fourth directive that's preventing him from open fire. But it shouldn't be that. It should be like he should be looking at the people cowering and saying like, a gunfight right now is not the right thing to do. Like he should be looking between those and the rehabs and thinking, really, like, what is the judgment call? Do I open fire or don't I? Like, do I put these people at risk or do I do this? Like, I don't know. You're right. That fourth directive coming back is actually a bit of a problem. Um,
Yeah, and it's never clear in the RoboCop movies like how these directives really prevent his action, right? Or govern his action because he violates them all the time, right? I mean, there's a joke in RoboCop 2 where where he's screwed up and he refuses to speed once they've added those 250 directives. Right before he says like, "Isn't the moon lovely tonight?"
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but the implication is he's still going around speeding. Well, that's not upholding the law, right?
no, yeah,
So, I mean, he's routinely violating these directives, but they have some kind of limiting parameter.
yeah,
But I get confused when he's firing on. Okay, first of all, let's just establish every scene in this movie, with one exception, has a fatal error. Like, I mean, there's just something that irritates me and everything. So, he's firing on the Nazi thugs and his bullets are bouncing off their feet, like Wild West, like he's shooting all around them. Except clearly the ricochets would be like tearing their feet up, right?
yeah.
Like,
And lower legs, yeah, their shins would be
yes.
all over the place. Yeah,
I mean, and then he fires on their vehicle. It's like, the directive is actually do not oppose OCP officers. So I guess shooting at their feet and blowing up their vehicle is not opposing them. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I shouldn't be
It's
left wondering these things.
No, I agree, and it's kind of loose. I think it's trying to show. I know what it's trying to show. It's trying to show him working around those directives to still be doing what he's doing. But you're right. The directives are oddly, and this thing of like, what's the one? Protect and serve. Like, don't serve the public trust, protect the innocent. Apart from when he's doing a car chase and randomly firing at things and bullets are flying, like it's that thing, isn't it? It's like there's no judgment call made to say shouldn't be using a rocket launcher at this point because possible collateral damage.
Also, I'm not sure it's legal for an officer to use a rocket launcher. Like, that might not be
Flamethrower.
upholding the law, right? Yeah, like,
Yeah. So yeah, I agree. But it's the one thing this film does, and it's going to be sort of a tenet of my sort of feelings about this film that I struggle with, is we came to a point with both one and two that it was a sort of like anti-superhero narrative. It was kind of like you're a part of the system, you're an owned product, and this isn't the freeing up of becoming a superhero and finding yourself and all that kind of stuff. This is the opposite, really. Like you are produced and you are owned and you are directed, kind of thing.
and
You're
you're enforcing the status quo. You haven't fundamentally changed the injustices of our society. You've just
exactly,
stopped
yeah,
the Joker again. Yeah.
yeah. This film is that tiered up. This is the superhero narrative. This
Yeah.
is Robo going full superhero. And I think one of the key differences of that is the body horror. Both one and two have that moment of like, how fucked up is this? That like this is what he is, but has become. You see the death of Alex Murphy in the first one; it's horrific, and how they sort of like he is just a piece of meat. That's sort of when he's being built as Robo, and then when he removes the helmet at the end, there is that thing of like you may not like what you see, and then they go full body horror for what he is in two, where they dismantle him and all that kind of stuff. And so you're kind of like, yeah, he is a robot, he's a cyborg. Like this is a real horror show, for what he is. In this one, it's kind of glorified what he is. He is now the hero. He's going to get a jetpack, and he's going to, and he's going to be able to be, he's although his resiliency is kind of varied, but like he's going to, I don't know, like connect
be
with
set on
people.
fire, and yeah.
But there's no
And,
sort of like there's no sort of consideration. Like even when he has memories of his family, it's kind of like, oh, this is memories of his family, but it's not shocking to him. It's not. It's obviously worked through it or whatever. But there's no like horror of going like Murphy is trapped inside a tin can, and this is like he doesn't struggle with it in this film. There's no sort of um it's not about that. And I think by losing that,
undermining. So like,
no,
I mean, RoboCop 1 was very influenced by comic books, I
Mm.
mean, and RoboCop 2, is written by Frank Miller,
Yeah.
and both are sort of deconstructing that superhero narrative, very much in a, Judge Dredd style.
Mm.
Um, also very over the top, very violent, very tongue in cheek. This one is much more, well, RoboCop's popular now. We can kind of make him the new Superman. Like, don't throw the new Superman on the trash heap. for all of that violent satire. And so this one really is RoboCop as Superman. Literally in the jetpack scene. I mean, it
Yeah,
really does feel like, oh, he can fly now.
yeah. What is it's toyetic. I mean, this film is insanely toyetic in that respect. But it feels like that. That's the thing. Like this is that thing we've said about other films, other media, that it often sort of ends up becoming the thing that it was kind of railing against in the first place. Like they end up falling into that trap because eventually that's what the audience wants. You know, it's almost like stick around long enough, you become the villain. You know,
Hmm.
or weirdly in this case, you become the superhero. Um, yeah, I don't know. It just that kind of disappoints me that there's that lack of body horror in in this film, or this the horror of what Murphy is in this film. There's this whole thing of like removing his memories and that sort of thing, and even that's
Yeah, so
treated like a like oh, we're just not going to do it, and you go like,
it's just a
okay,
throwaway.
yeah,
That's really insulting, right? I mean, so Bradley Whitfield shows up. He's the new guy who's the liaison between OCP and you know the woman, now Dr. Lazarus. Um
stupid name.
yes, painful dumb. And he says that he demands. First of all, they another guy introduces, oh, by the way, we have this chip. It's in a little plastic baggie, like it's ready to go. I hate this so much.
Yeah.
Like, when they do this in movies, it's like, oh, we built this thing that we never implemented, right? Why do you have this ready to go? And Bradley Whitfield's like, right, do it, sweet cheeks.
Mm.
And then she just takes a mallet to it. As you cut to the church scene. So what was the point of that? I mean, but that's so. First of all, nothing ever happens of all of that. But that's kind of like the remnant of what you're talking about. Of it's not just the body horror which sets a tone of sort of like a horror genre element to the sci-fi action, right?
Mm.
It's also the central existential question of,
Mm.
is this Alex Murphy,
Yes.
and about the human spirit persevering, if you want to interpret it that way, or Jesus Christ with a machine gun if you're Paul Verhoeven.
Yeah.
But yeah, that whole struggle that defines, I mean, it's like a Spider-Man movie in which he has no problems,
Yeah.
like, oh, well, I mean, I guess it's still Spider-Man, but
Yeah, I think that's a problem. That's it. It feels just a lot of it feels kind of too easy in this film. Although
yeah.
they try and put the obstacles in, it kind of just falls into place repeatedly. Um, and we'll get to some bits about that. But yeah, I don't know. Just the superhero narrative kind of feels. I feel kind of cheated by having this. Um, and there needs to be more of a sacrifice for him going against OCP. It's even like a trite kind of sacrifice that which is the death of Lois, which we'll get
Which
to
is
shortly. But
terrible.
yeah,
That's just terrible.
yeah. What I want to get to first thing is let's get to the start of this film, because I think there's a couple of things at the beginning that kind of lay some of the groundwork that we haven't got to. We said this in the first two films. Like the first film's intro is kind of like it opens with the give us 3 minutes, we'll give you the news stuff, and then goes in. And the second one has a similar thing, and then goes straight into like the street scene, which we both lauded as being
Massive
exceptionally,
violence.
yeah, exceptionally well done, incredibly sort of catchy, really good hook of getting you in the film, but then results very relatively quickly in RoboCop's introduction.
Right.
Right, car
Or
gets blown up.
reintroduction. Yeah.
Yeah, car gets blown up. All this stuff. He steps out the fire and sort of takes down the sort of the robbers that robbed
Tells
him.
you he's badass, right? If you didn't know already,
Yeah,
the world is aflame and RoboCop is
yeah,
indomitable.
yeah. It's a great reintroduction, re-entry into the film franchise. So in this, it takes 16 minutes for RoboCop to arrive. And
Hmm.
you start with this whole thing with the rehabs. You get the sort of 3 minutes, give us 3 minutes, we'll give you the world. And there's the whole thing of like you learn about the rehabilitation, about moving of Detroit City's moving forward. You get the Detroit City advert, and then you get this family of like Nico, the little
Delta
girl,
City.
Delta City, sorry, Delta City, and you get Nico and her family, and then you get the sort of the big demolition ball, and then everyone being ripped apart and being put on buses, and you'll later find out
And a
killed.
resistance. Yeah.
Yeah,
Why were they? How did they die? What is
like
going on in these
OCP apparently is
rehabilitation camps?
yeah, is OCP just
Are they death
executing
camps?
people? Yeah, we don't know.
Apparently.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the whole sort of like, yeah, I really, as somebody who tends toward anti-corporate sentiment
hmm
anyway, I really resent when corporations are shown to be like Nazi level evil, right?
yeah.
Like, no, their capitalist rudimentary pettiness
Yes.
is possibly going to destroy the planet.
But
You know,
this is
that's
where,
enough.
but this becomes this film. The other two films exist in a world within America or within the world, right? There's talk of like the Ed 209s being deployed all over the world in war zones. In the second film, there's talk of like, well, Nuke hasn't got as far as so and so and so and so and so. They're looking at Ed deploying Robocop units in other parts of America. Like it exists within the thing. OCP is a sort of like everywhere, but there is a government and there's a sort of a system and there's stuff going on. I understand that. Within this film, within three, like it's kind of OCP versus like there's no federal government, there's no wider world, like no one's looking on and going, there's an organization. I don't think the police. They appear to be killing American citizens in
Yeah.
their dozens. Is no one gonna have a problem with this? Like,
Well, and that's like when people spout these conspiracy theories and you say, yeah, like I'm following your theory, but like it's not that we have a system of checks and balances that works perfectly, but like a local sheriff might be able to get away with some of this in a small
mm,
town with no oversight. You can't get away with this in Detroit. I mean, even this idea of like privatization and owning Detroit, like you're willing to kind of brush it under the rug a little in RoboCop and RoboCop 2, right?
hmm
Like there are logistical issues there in terms of, how much you can own of a city, right? Like a celebrity buys a city. That doesn't mean that they, you still have that doesn't mean that they have unilateral control over everything and can impose martial law, right? I
mm,
mean, the Bill of Rights is still in effect, state law is still in effect. Municipal water supplies are still governed by county regulations and state regulations and things like this. Um, you know, I mean, this seems to be totally not understood in three. Like you're sort of able to kind of squint and it not be a problem in one and two. In three, it's just in your face. Like
yes,
this would be a major like national and international news story that there are death squads roaming through
well,
a
exactly.
major American city, mowing civilians down with machine gun fire, forcibly putting them on buses. I mean, an eviction notice is one thing, but even, I mean, I know was in Miller's script, but like there are laws governing how long you have to wait before you evict somebody and what you can
Mm,
do with their stuff. It is a minefield for landlords to navigate. Now, maybe some law has been passed to make that easier, but I mean, at every step of the way, I'm thinking like, you see this time and time in movies where a wrecking ball just destroys a house that's occupied and nobody's removed any stuff. Like, this is not the way this works.
yeah, and that's the thing that's part of the problem with this. Like, the first two films felt outlandish or cartoonish at times, but they seem to sort of respect and work within certain rule boundaries that you were like, oh, corporations are disgusting and evil and corrupt, but there's still things they've got to get round and deal with in order to do these things. As you say, in this film, they kind of just throw that out the window and you just have Rip Torn going like, yeah, rip it all down. Let's just do this, do that. We've got to get this cleared by 12 midnight on Friday, given a really nice ticking clock. Um, yeah, I don't. It just feels really silly. Where I'm just like, this doesn't feel. This feels more cartoonish, yet less outlandish than the first one. You know what I mean? It's kind of on the second one. It's kind of like it has its own rules, but these are the same rules that you see in like superhero films, where you'll go, we've said this, and we've talked about other science fiction films, and you go like, how does this work across the rest of the world? Because this seems to be really bizarre. They're like, just this city, like we said about like Demolition Man. You're like, oh, so there's this massive problem with like these things. How has this been dealt with the federal government? Like this never mentioned,
Right.
and those kinds of things. So yeah, that kind of starts to really bother me in this film a little bit.
I agree.
But yeah,
but it's especially a problem with these rehab guys. The whole
yes.
idea of having, it's not a bad idea to have like so I mean, inevitably we're going to do this anyway, so I might as well introduce it. Like we rewrite stuff, right? Like so it's not a bad idea to have mercenaries from the Amazon wars brought in. But that should be part and parcel of militarization of the police, which we've seen some of in the first 1 and 2, right?
Yes.
So the cops should be integrated with these mercenaries. They might be doing some of the uglier evicting people tasks that the cops don't want to do anyway, as they point out in this movie. And so you tell the cops, yeah, you won't have to do it. We're going to bring in people to do it. Well, but then it's like, well, they're being really rough and giving us a bad name. I'm not sure we're really on the same team. But here, they're even given these Nazi-esque uniforms, I mean, having them be a different entity entirely, to make them be an easy villain without slandering the police in a kid's toy line is, a huge problem.
Well, the propaganda in all of these is crazy, but more so in this one. But one of the things, to what you say about Integrate, like that's the story of how like SWAT teams came about. That at first there was a single SWAT team that was sort of created in Los Angeles, and I think in the late '60s, and then by the sort of like mid '70s they were everywhere because everyone was like, oh, we get to have big guns, and that's amazing. And obviously, after Nixon declared the war on drugs in 71, like the budget went up and everyone started asking for things. So the things like OCP giving them the tanks and all this other stuff, like that's kind of factual. Like that happened.
Yeah.
There was a news story in there. There was a SWAT team in the '70s were trying to show how efficient and good they were using a tank and everything. And it was broadcast, and they got the wrong house and actually ripped out someone's garage, using his tank, and had to apologize. And there was a massive sort of uproar so all the stuff it feels like you should be looking at that and going, yeah, the police are militarized and swatted up in the first couple of films, but we're still going to show you how ridiculous it is to escalate the militarization of the police by having these elements enforced and have it be a split in the police that says like there are people in the police that want to join this militarized. In fact, they join it for this reason, to be able to wear like the cool riot gear and the flak jackets and carry the M16s and all this other shit, like
and drive a tank.
But then have the others that say, no, as Sergeant what's it says, like that's not a cop's job. Like that's not what we're here for. It should really be that tension within the police. I agree.
Right, and that could be part of an examination of look, this is the future of law enforcement. What does that mean?
Yeah,
and even connecting it again to the past movies, especially RoboCop 2, like one of the problems of this franchise is, like all of these franchises, is you have that technology to build RoboCop. Why haven't you done this again? Okay, well, RoboCop 2 explains that. But you see the ED-209s. It's implied they're being deployed around the U.S. and the world. We don't know to what extent. We don't know how well they work, frankly. But
badly in this film.
Yeah, and they don't do an awful lot in either of the two films, the first two. But it is implied that they're making sales. Armament sales. But there's this sort of like talk in RoboCop 1 and 2 of sort of like, we need, the streets are tougher and we need a cop who doesn't sleep, right? This sort of like, in RoboCop 2, like, it's gotten tough out there. We're going to have a robot who's got the firepower to get the job done.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that failed spectacularly. That's a great opportunity to say we're going to arm the human police that we have.
Yeah.
Again, this is, like the ball's been lobbed over the net for you to hit back, and RoboCop 3 like deliberately misses it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah. Instead of hitting the ball, it just throws the racket at the other person. Right?
And
Yeah,
then
no,
misses the target.
and still misses. Exactly. I think this is this is shown best with the reintroduction of Lois. I mean, the thing you've met, we get shown the resistance. You've got CCH Pounder and these others that are this resistance and are looking, and they basically sort of pick up Nico, the little girl, who doesn't like a hacker child in the 90s.
Yeah.
With her futuristic laptop that's as clunky and chunky as hell, and has a keyboard that gets stuck inside. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing! Like, this is what they thought the future was going to be. I love that. Yeah, and they just want to say they do steal from a police impound. She beats an ED 209
Yeah.
by running under it, and it doesn't just open fire at the little child that's running towards it, which the ones from the first film would have done. And she opens a sort of thing in its leg without it moving. And I love the fact that all the ports it's got in its leg are so dated. It's brilliant. I was like, oh my god, that's amazing. But then she plugs her laptop in and she's like, I can make him as loyal as a puppy. And it has the countdown that says, now I am as loyal as a puppy. And then I was like, wow, this is really easy. Like, you literally plugged it in and it had the settings menu.
Yeah, right.
Like,
Anybody with a jack can just
yeah.
plug into the base. Yeah, I mean, so a couple things are worth noting for me here. One is that she literally types on the screen, "loyal as a puppy," ... and
Yeah.
that's what. So I guess you type in English. That's how coding works. Is you just type an English phrase and
It reads it. Yeah.
and just adopts it instantly as it is and understands
Yeah.
English. It's so utterly, I mean, like the most phoned in version of the child hacker you could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's...
Then there's the issue of like the jokes.
Mm-hmm.
And there's humor all through RoboCop 1 and 2.
Mm.
They're very tongue-in-cheek movies, but that humor is always dark humor, right? It's usually really dark. This movie is filled with like, they've moved RoboCop, not just ED-209 with loyal as a puppy, but they've moved RoboCop like halfway between the sort of like quips that Weller used to make and like a bad 70s James Bond movie. Like he's always got a sort of not so good quip that hope you have insurance.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Well, the worst one, the worst one is from the very, very beginning. I mean, yeah. So basically, having stolen this, it causes a police chase. This week, you get reintroduced to Lois, who's at a cop like diner, and they start chasing the van down that's got these resistance fighters in and Nico, and they've got this stuff. They get sort of like having the street traffic lights change, and so they get stuck in a car crash. And then the police, the guys escape, but Robo sort of turns up and continues in pursuit. But then Frank Miller's favorite thing. I mean, I swear Frank Miller was assaulted in some way by some weird-looking gang member at some point in his life because they just appear in everything. Like Stephen King, when he was as a kid, was bullied by greasers, right? So they are always the villains in all of his books.
By the way, as any non-punk 50s teenager was, basically. All those guys from Greece are bad guys.
Oh,
okay?
Yeah. No, 100%.
They belong in jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's be crystal clear. But I know what you mean. Like if they look like they're from the Warriors or like Storm from her redo in the Claremont years, like they are a bad guy in Frank Miller.
That's it. There are mohawks and like leather jackets and all kinds of weird stuff, not just shredded stuff going on. And they talk, you know, like they're out of Mad Max. Splat, I don't want to do splat splat. No, splat splat, do splat splat. You're like, oh, fucking hell. I hate that bullshit so much. Um, but
That's just
anyway,
because
like
you're not down with the teen jive.
that's true. um, but yeah, these gang members that have pinned down the police, and they call Lois calls for backup, and Robo decides to instead of stop the pursuit and go and help Lois.
Okay, well, it's worse than this because the police have intervened already, and
Mm-hmm.
and Lois looks over and sees a graffiti art that says like SP, and she goes,
Splatterpunks.
"Oh no, the splatter bombs!" Like this is something that's known to the police. Like they're
Yeah, yeah.
scared of this thing called the splatter
Oh no,
bombs.
this
Like
is one of those sort of no go areas. This is Birmingham, according to GB News. This is what Birmingham's like. It's GB, yeah, this is what the right wing says. Nigel Farage says
it's
this.
so ridiculous.
Oh, it
Like
is.
the
Yeah,
cops are living in fear of this gang we've never heard of before.
and they turn up and they do look like something out of the Warriors. Like it's
Hmm.
it all out of, fully enough, out of Dark Knight Returns. They
That's
just
true. I thought of
yeah.
the Warriors a lot. I also thought so many times during this movie that they should have gotten George Miller to direct it.
Oh
Like
God,
like
a
the
George
Mad Max
Miller,
influences
yeah, a George
are
Miller
even clearer
RoboCop.
here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh
wouldn't that have been awesome? Like
yes.
a George Miller RoboCop 3? Like holy shit.
That'd been amazing. Yes. But like you say, all those influences are so obvious at this point. Anyway, I want to talk about RoboCop's entrance because he does. He turns back and goes to save Lois. So they're pinned down and
He
they're taking
disobeys
fire. He
orders,
disobeys an
right?
order to go and help her.
Oh,
Yeah.
by the way, to pursue the damaged yellow van, then an APB is issued, and then the cops look outside and say, "That's a damaged yellow van."
Yeah.
Like literally, that's a line of dialogue in the movie. It's not hateful, but it's
No.
just like every scene's got to have something like this that just
Yes.
makes me pissed off.
Well, this leads to we see about like the way that a scene is shot, all right, or a shot is set up. So basically, he discontinues the pursuit and goes to save Lois and the police.
Okay, smashing his radio when
Yeah,
he's told to turn around. Why are you just smashing?
Turn-
Why are you
turn it
punching
off.
the radio for
Pretty sure,
dramatic effect?
yeah, pretty sure no one's there to see you do it. Like apart from the
Right.
viewer, like turn it off or ignore it. Like
It's
yeah.
yeah.
Um, but the stupidity of this entrance continues because he drives off and you see the pinned down police cars, and he's on like a higher road,
Mhm.
okay,
A highway.
a highway, and he drives over the top of them, right? But then decides to turn off that and go up a multi-story car park whilst they're still under fire from
Mhm.
these thugs. And then he stops to change his hand for his machine gun arm. Then he drives through the concrete barrier at the top of the car park to land behind Lois and the police. So, and then shoots out the roof of his car,
Oh my god.
and then sort of pulls out and starts opening fire on these sort of thugs that have technically done nothing yet. One of them has killed a civilian, but they don't know, and so he starts mowing them down. Like police brutality on a level I've never sort of seen, where he just sort of opens fire randomly at people without inspecting. But more importantly, this is the most redundant entrance we've ever had for RoboCop, because like he went up even further and took
Yes.
time when he could have just come off that bank, off that
Yeah.
highway
Right. There's
to
an
do the
exit to
same
that
thing.
highway that goes straight to that road.
Yeah,
He decided to Grand Theft Auto style, like
yeah.
drive up the entire, like 10 stories or whatever of that car.
Directive
And
5, fifth directive.
so that he
Awesome entrance.
Yeah, required.
Yeah,
Except he's rushing to get to Lois.
yeah.
Why is it, what was the efficacy? I have to say there's a special place in hell for people who use machine gun fire to open doors. Like
Repeatedly in this film.
like it's bad enough if you've got like a sci-fi laser cannon or something like that. Like
Hmm.
it's not meant to do that. I wonder what's the tensile strength of that door. But okay, it's a sci-fi laser cannon or it's a welding torch, whatever. It delays the characters. I mean, this is not the way bullets work. Bullets are not like like they're not hole punchers, right?
No.
They're not like nail guns that punch a hole in something. I mean, and this is done repeatedly in this movie.
Oh yeah. No. But
Open the door, RoboCop.
well, he
Why?
doesn't need to. I mean, he does it like the roof of his car. Like he literally, yeah, he could just step out like he does in the second one or in the first film and like open fire. Like the gun arm is on the side of the door. Like he just, it's not like he has to reach across himself to start opening fire. Like it makes no sense. But going up the top and like destroying a police vehicle to do this makes no sense. Like it benefits no one in this scene. It is the
Not
stupidest entrance ever. I've
not to
hated this as
mention
the first
it
time I
lands
saw
on its tires.
it.
Like car, you see
Yeah,
this in movies where it's like, cars aren't balanced to maintain an equilibrium in flight, right? Like
yeah.
that's not something that they make cars for.
It is.
And even
It's
sometimes when you see these jumps, you see the cars kind of like twisting and bending,
yeah,
as they leap off already because they're
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
balanced, and then somehow magically land on their feet,
Well, they cut to
or on
they
their
edit it.
tires.
Yeah, they edit it nicely so it'll come back to they'll land perfectly.
This might be the worst entrance in the candidates for worst entrance in all action movies.
Oh, yes, I've always thought that I've hated this entrance. Like this is the kind of thing you do for like a 90s superhero TV show. Like this is how they enter almost like a parody. Like I'd expect it from like
Mhm.
Police Academy or something. This is how Tackleberry would turn up.
It's like
Yeah,
the Tropic Thunder would make great fun
yes,
of this, right? Like,
exactly
like
that.
no, we can't go in straight. We got to shoot something out.
Exactly. But I mean, the point of the is we'll get to the rest of it in a second. But like you say about the shooting out of the police car roof, like I say, later on he shoots a hole, a RoboCop shaped hole in a door, in a wooden door in a hotel. When I'm like, didn't you just walk? Haven't you walked through brick walls before?
In
Like,
RoboCop 1, part of his debut is that he punches through a wall and grabs a guy and pulls him through it. Like,
yeah, yeah. You don't need to blast a hole if you've kicked down like warehouse doors
yeah.
to get into like gunfights. Like shooting through a hotel room door seems a little overkill. It's not very well made.
Not to mention he
Um,
bends a metal elevator door like 3 seconds earlier.
yeah, yeah,
Like, what?
exactly. Yes, perfectly good
Yeah.
point. Yeah, this is so all over the place. Um,
But
but
but Scott, you're missing the point, and that's that it's badass.
yeah.
Okay. If we didn't celebrate badassery for its own effect, there would be no Wolverine. Okay.
That's true. Well, there'll be no Wolverine origins. That's we could probably do without
I think
that.
we can live with that.
Um, but they say this entrance continues because he then catches a bullet that was destined for
In
Lois's head
midair.
in midair.
That's apparently that's like,
A thing.
the RoboCop equivalent of like Superman having like forget me kisses, like just add a RoboCop power.
Yeah, this is yeah. Well, this is like Mr. Miyagi catching a fly in the Karate Kid. Like this is yeah. So he
And
does
and
that.
that bullet was meant for Lois,
Yeah,
right? It almost killed Lois. Very sad. It means a little less given that she's going to die like 10 minutes later for no reason
yeah.
whatsoever. Okay, it's just pointing out.
Well, this I do want to say the inconsistency of Lois. How like in this scene, actually, she's shown to be like competent. She kind of sort of does a few things. She's kind of badass. She stands up. She's respected by all the other cops. Like, she has a position. We'll get to when she's killed and sort of just chooses to stand completely in the open in front of a wall of machine gun fire. Doesn't even try and find cover at all. Yeah, it's ludicrous. But he does go up. Robocop sort of said this is what he says. There are three. Any amount that I detect, there are three. Opens fire, kills one randomly. There is no
Which you don't
arrest.
see because it's
No,
RoboCop 3. You don't
exactly.
see any of the
Yeah, but
deaths,
makes a
right?
joke. Now there are two. which he chases
Correction
down.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, he chases down. They set him on fire. They set Robo on fire. He stands there for having killed all these other people, and done everything amazing. He stands there to allow them to pour accelerant all over him and throw a flame on him, and then he walks after them whilst on fire. Now it's a good body burn; it looks cool.
Yeah.
But the fact he stands there for like 30 seconds doing nothing infuriates me.
Yes, it's very awkward to say the
Yeah.
least.
I can sort of see why Peter Weller read this and was like, "No, thank you, I'm not coming back." Like, I bet this is where he got to. He got to like page 20 and was like, "Yeah, I'm not doing this rubbish." But he takes the two punks down without killing them this time, sort of like and they get taken in.
Softer, gentler RoboCop.
Yeah, after kill after
to mirror George H.W. Bush's language.
Yeah, after mowing a bunch of other people down without any sort of questioning
compunction.
Yeah, no. And then, but this is it. This is where we're now going to get into. We've now had Robo's intro, and we can get into the whole other thing now. More about the resistance, but the fact that this is supposed to be his intro, reintroduction of how badass it is. Nothing feels more PG-13 than this entrance from beginning to end.
Yeah, but it's PG-13, but it's also overblown, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is that action figure thing of wanting it to be as dramatic as possible, logic be damned, but also acceptable to the kiddos.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly that. And then it sort of, to be fair, it kind of just meanders then for a bit, because you get to learn about the resistance, we get to learn about the rehabs and how that works, and the Japanese takeover of OCP and who's doing what, and you meet characters,
which is still really confusing. The Japanese CEO is shown after a little later after they fail, ranting like incompetent Americans. And then he's presented as like noble at the end and bowing to RoboCop. Like I don't understand his motivation. We don't really learn the circumstances of this takeover. Rip Torn, who granted, I love Rip Torn.
I love Rip Torn. Yeah.
He died sadly, but Larry Sanders Show, made me fall in love with Rip Torn. But, he talks about loans coming due. How do these loans work into the takeover? No, I mean, it's like there's no coherent vision of what's happening at OCP.
No, well, this is the thing. This is almost like, because they've gone the exact opposite of Robocop 2. Robocop 2 was the city in debt to OCP for 37 million. Now, I'm unsure why, but OCP appears to have a deficit of $350 million. And you go, right, well, I don't know what the timescale is between these between 2 and 3 in Robocop timeline, but like, what the fuck happened? That's you've blasted through all that money and you're now 350 million in deficit. Like, you're right, there's no explanation of like, and this is where, as you sort of alluded to, it should be like, there should be the story. The old man was taken down, all the lawsuits following the catastrophe with Kane. We had
and that made us vulnerable to takeover. And hey, the Japanese were offering more money than the American companies trying to raid us.
Yeah, it should be like this. Not only did it damage financially, it damaged our brand. We've not been able to get the sales that we had previously. Blah blah. As you say, and that has left us. We're basically
congressional hearings into those ED 209s. Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, we're now being basically going to be strip mined for, parts by the Japanese. That should be the thing. But there's just no explanation. And I kind of feel that because the OCP has been the consistent villain piece of this, that it feels like I feel like I've been let down. Like I should have that story that tells me this is why they're in the position they're in.
It feels very half-assed. Right. Yes. I mean, the one thing you need is a consistent motivation for your villain. We don't know OCP's motivation. We don't even know what their situation is. I mean, they're trying to build Delta City, and so they've employed mercenaries and whatnot. But how does building Delta City fit into the takeover? How are they, how is that going to wipe through their debt? I mean, at one point Rip Torn is yelling, how they need to clear Cadillac Heights, by Friday or whatever. How is that going to clear their debt? I mean, I literally don't know the basics of what's going on here.
Well, they make a comment that says if they're not able to progress with the project of flattening Cadillac Heights to sort of continue with Delta City, the banks will call in their loans, and they don't have the money, the ready cash to pay the loans off, and therefore they'll have to sell assets and stuff to pay the money back, and they don't have it. But I'm still going like, well, what has happened for you to be that getting loans from banks to do that? Surely the other thing is like usually it's like joint investors and stuff from other companies and stuff like that. This does feel very uninformed and very half-assed as a sort of a motivator for OCP.
Yeah, and also you're in the middle of a takeover. Like your balance sheets are being scrutinized like never before. Does
Mm.
that jeopardize your takeover if you're suddenly defaulting on loans? Like when you default on a loan, as our current president knows, they don't instantly take over your assets, right?
No.
Like there's a long process that begins. Um, you know, uh, so I don't know. None of this, there's no worldview here. I mean, this is just backdrop for the superhero action.
Yeah, I mean this feels no different to like the Shadow or you know Blade or like there's no difference to like one of those kind of films where it's like, oh, the city's in trouble, and Daredevil was the one I'm thinking of, like, oh, that or it's no different to any of those where you sort of go, I'm going to accept the fact that there's this kingpin of crime that can do all this and get away with it, and that we have to have the superhero to take him down. But yeah, this doesn't work in a. The moment you start going, how does this work with this, and what happens here, and why is this person doing that? It just falls to shit, to be honest. As a
Well, and you'd think
structure.
there'd be some discussion of how, how widespread the ED209 program is. In fact, when the girl reprograms the ED209 early on, I thought, oh, this is great. It'll give the resistance a way of really fighting back
Yeah,
because, they've got all these ED209s around the city that are apparently really easy to reprogram. Never attempted again,
yeah,
right?
never
That's just there
mentioned.
for a gag. Yeah. And
Yeah,
the same thing, like they have Robocop is a tremendous asset. Isn't another company interested in this technology? Like if you're thinking about selling off assets, wouldn't that be an interesting thing? Like, instead of having yet another conversation between, an OCP representative and, Robocop's caretaker, why not have a conversation about like, you represent a commodity and we can in fact sell you.
yeah,
And there are a lot of companies that want the technology that went into creating you, and they're not aware of the problems we're having controlling you. So
yeah.
they're willing to pay a mint. You're kind of our most valuable asset right now.
Well,
That would be fascinating. Like if he really is property, you can sell him.
he's an
That
asset.
would
I
be
mean,
a
yeah,
way of continuing the existential, crisis of that character. None of that is done here.
no. Well, they kind of forget that. They've clearly forgotten. That's what's kind of funny, isn't it? They've kind of forgotten that, like, oh yeah, RoboCop is. Yeah, they do have Bradley Whitfield actually say at one point, he's just a machine, wipe his memory and all that other stuff. But they've completely forgotten this whole thing of, as they say in, like, especially in the second one when he's been taken apart, when they're like, they actually call him an asset. They call him a machine, a piece of OCP is an OCP asset. Like they acknowledge it. In this one, they don't want to go that far because they want to
He's a
distance him.
superhero.
They want to distance him from OCP. Like he cannot be intrinsically tied to the baddies. Which unfortunately they should be doing. They should really be digging into that.
Well,
Even more
and
so.
even the way, like you mentioned, the way they use the flashbacks, it's
Mm.
exactly the way you sort of have flashbacks to Batman's parents being killed in every movie, right? Where
Yeah,
it's like, wink, wink, in case you forgot, this is his origin story. And there's a little bit, there's an implied pain there that's sort of like background motivation, but, that's not the focus of the story. In the same token, it's like OCP having built him, that's Superman or Batman's origin story.
hmm
Once that's done, that's forgotten, right?
yes,
So as a consequence, like OCP's still around, right? He's
yeah,
still an asset. but that's utterly forgotten because that's part of the origin story. That's bracketed. That's gone now. His
Hmm.
job is to be a cop.
Yeah. Well, even like Dr. Lazarus, who seems to be maintaining him, I'm never entirely sure who she works for. Because, Bradley Whitford's character calls her sweet cheeks and tells her what to do. But like, is she an OC? I'm assuming she's an
She's
OCP.
OCP, yeah.
She's an
He
OCP
fires her
employee.
later on
Yeah,
by
yeah, that's
video
true.
call.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there isn't this central dynamic that you would expect. I mean, certainly RoboCop is a vast asset in any takeover, right? This
Mm.
proprietary technology. Um, I mean, even the fact that he disobeys, they're probably going to be more worried about the fact that that shows their proprietary technology isn't as good as they've represented to
Yeah.
the Japanese than they would about him disobeying an order.
Well, the Japanese, this is the thing we want to get to, because the Japanese, and this was the fear of, I think, of the Japanese. Because we have Robocop, who is a human tissue encased in a metal robotic body, including, and they confirm he has this robotic heart as well, because when he
Mhm.
gets damaged in this, they replace it and they actually have a Kimamitsu heart that they're going to use. So he's already using OCP's new parent company as for parts. I thought that was great. I thought that was kind of a
Yeah.
nice little nod. Um,
Again to the first movie, to
yes,
that heart commercial. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, so it's all going back to So there's Fred Decker did a good job of doing certain things, callbacks and stuff like that. But what we know is Kimamitsu have Otomo,
Yeah.
this samurai or ninja warrior that we eventually learn is a robot. Now it's never
Yeah.
confirmed. It's never confirmed. Oh no, it's not a cyborg because its head gets blown off and all this other stuff. Like it's a robot. It's a full android. I like the fact as well that the guy who plays Otomo, Bruce Locke, one of the things he does, he never blinks. He does a really good job of like doing like the Arnie thing of like when he was the Terminator. But why the hell would Kimamitsu give two monkeys about RoboCop if they can produce Otomo?
Yeah, I can understand why a company might buy out a competitor or
Uh-huh.
whatever. But again, there should be a line of dialogue about how this is working at the corporate level. And that there should at least be a line of dialogue about how that's a company that has pioneered robotics. There's nothing like that. In fact, they just say, like, are you ready to deploy? And they go into a separate room where Atomo is sitting, cross-legged in like a little Zen garden. Like, I
Yeah.
guess that's where they keep him. And then you find out by the end of the movie, there's at least three of them. So where were the others? I mean, nothing in this movie really makes sense, right?
Yeah. No, again, yeah, Otomo kind of, is a droid. But like if it's a droid, like you say, like there's no comment of going like, oh, they have that clunky metal looking thing. We've perfected human looking skin. We've done this. We've
Mhm.
done that. Like we are leaps and the OCP don't know that we are leaps and bounds ahead of their technology. Like there's no this film should be working at two levels. So it should be like that you say that corporate level of the fight going on between OCP and Kimamitsu, and then the sort of level on the floor and stuff, and learning more about it. But like, yeah, the corporate stuff just doesn't work at all because there's nothing there to sort of be latched onto.
I agree. Although I have to, I have to say that a lot of the corporate scenes are some of my favorite scenes. And I think it's largely because I like boardroom scenes. I like Rip Torn.
Mm.
I like Johnson. Um, I kind of wanted Johnson to be the CEO.
Yeah, I like the fact
Uh,
he's not. No, I kind of like the fact he's not.
yeah, because it's like they'll never let the black man be
Yeah,
the main guy.
exactly. Like he's still kind of sniveling. He's still going to do his thing, but like, yeah, he's never going to get the top job. Like just having gone through everything.
So let me tell you, my favorite scene in this entire movie is the executive jumping from the window.
That is a good scene. Yeah.
It's my favorite scene. And it's the jump still looks a little low budget, it's not as well edited and
Hmm.
and shot as it would be in RoboCop 1 or 2. But the wife talking on the video phone on the desk, as saying like all corporations go through this, like you'll get
It'll
over
get
this.
better.
As
Yeah.
her husband is at an open window
Yeah.
in a skyscraper, jumping out as she continues to speak to an empty room, is pure RoboCop 1 and 2
That
satirical gold.
and especially because
And,
the next scene. Sorry, go on.
yeah, is he falls down to the plaza below,
Yeah,
and
it's
they're
you.
like, "This has happened 4 times in the last month."
I love that it's a transition scene. It's used as like this guy's suicide
Yeah.
is used as a transition to get to the next scene. I thought that was pure, like you say, RoboCop 1 and 2. Like that felt like, oh, that's of a kin. Like that's the dark
Yeah.
humor that we've had, and it's kind of
And over the
extended.
top,
Yeah,
violent,
and it
and
kind of
Bradley
continues though.
Whitfield.
Yeah,
And Bradley Whitfield talks about how he'd use a gun. Is this what you're gonna?
because he says it's too showy. I wouldn't do that. I'll just eat a bullet. And then when he gets fired, you
Two
just
minutes
see
later,
2 minutes later, yeah, you see him. He pulls out. He's got a gun in his like a side holster, and as he leaves, you just hear a gunshot in Johnson's face as he's like, "Oh shit!" Like,
yeah, they stop the scene to follow. Now, of course, yeah, I agree. I like that too.
so that
Of
whole
course, I
section is
want
actually very
to.
good. Yeah.
I agree. I think that's the best section in the whole
Mm.
film. I mean, and it's the most in line with 1 and 2.
Hmm.
Now, of course, 1 and 2 would show the suicide,
Yeah.
and brains all over the wall, and and people, arriving
You'd
to
have
clean it
Johnson.
up, who
You'd have
say like,
you'd
"Oh, another one."
yeah. You'd have Johnson sort of having to leave and step over the body, and have like a cleaning crew wiping blood off the floor and pulling the body aside or something, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they would have done a better job with this, but this does feel the most sort of in line with
Mm.
1 and 2. And I think it only makes me want more of
Mm.
this corporate plot. And these corporate shenanigans and the background to it.
I agree. That's what I want is more of it, but better. Like I don't want if they're just doing what they're going to keep doing. I don't want any more of that. But what they do when it's good, it's good. But a lot of the time, it just doesn't work for me. um,
But there is a sense of like mayhem at the OCP
yes.
building of just like, because we've seen them as this, sort of all powerful mega Blade Runner-esque corporation. And now they're on hard times. They're in the midst of
Hmm.
a takeover, and it is wonderful to see them that way. And to see these, hollowed halls of the OCP tower filled with, executives, killing themselves and,
Yeah.
scrambling for their jobs as the world is falling. At one point, Bradley Whitfield says like, it's like the fall of Rome around here, and I
Yeah.
love that sense of chaos. For me, those are the highlights of the film, kind of.
Yeah. But yeah, and it does. There are moments I think that work in those times. But the other side of this is, and it's kind of Robocop's already been driven through a neighborhood that's been torn apart. He's seen like families being torn apart and stuff, and he gets a video of Nikita, what her name is, the kid, going into a church, and so he has this Nico going into this church, so he has this kind of um, you know evidence, and then he sort of sees that this church is part of these raids that are being set up for the police to do to support the rehab teams, and he goes straight there,
I'm very
finds them.
confused.
Let's try
I'm
and
very
parcel this out.
confused because we see him leaving the police department. Lewis says, is explicitly asked. This has to be one of the worst lines of the entire film. Do you want your body armor? Like this has
Yeah,
anytime in a movie where a cop is asked if they want to take their body armor, you know what's going to happen in the next
but
2
her
minutes.
response is even better. Her response
I'm
is,
off duty.
"I'm off duty." Cool.
And then she proceeds to go to that church with Robocop. Like,
yeah, it's
you're
ridiculous.
not off duty then.
No. But they do. They go to the church. They find all the people, and he sort of, kind of sort of recognizes what's happening, and then the rehabs turn up, and we have McTaggart, the lead of it, sort of say basically, we're coming here. This is these are terrorists or squatters. These are squatters, and we're coming to clear them out.
And he says there are armed terrorists among them, which we
Yes.
haven't seen as they went through.
No. And yeah, Robo sort of, as they're sort of being shouted at, Robocop sort of looks back and it goes through his directives, and he's kind of sort of establishing where his loyalty or where his sort of directives are taking him. And number 4 pops up like, don't oppose an officer of OCP.
Well, first it's protect the innocent, and
Yeah,
he
looks at them.
feels
Because then he looks at like what's interesting is when he's looking at the rehab guys, it says uphold the law. That's the one. So he sees number 1 and 2, protect the innocent, serve the public trust, uphold the law. So uphold the law is kind of, the law is wrong because it's on the side of the rehabs.
Well, we don't know because we don't know what legal authority OCP has to deploy mercenaries in the street of Detroit.
Shoot the shit up out of it. Yeah.
I'm so confused by like this scene is so wrong on so many levels, and the fact that it is tied to Liz's death only makes it worse. So right? Like, what is the law here? We don't know.
No.
Yeah.
But he chooses to side with the resistance, fires at their feet, as we said before, and then McTaggart basically sort of says, "Fine," and then they shoot Lois because she sort of sides with him in open stance on the front steps of a church with no cover.
As RoboCop does nothing.
Stood
like he's being set on fire.
Yeah, he's not the fastest in this. And she gets shot multiple times, falls down, and then he gets a rocket launched in his, like a grenade sort of fired at his chest, and gets blown up the steps. And then they just open fire on the church. This is where this scene gets hit insanely, sort of like, again, this thing about timing just doesn't work in this scene because the rehabs are outside, all armed to the teeth. They've got a tank and they've got this other stuff. Yet it takes them a good 5 minutes to get through or even reach the church doors that they then start pounding on because everyone's trying to escape. And you've had Robo carry Lois's body to the bottom to lay her beneath the cross, and she basically says, get them for me, Murphy. Promise me you'll get them.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to back up and point out that in previous scenes with Lewis, she called him RoboCop, which she always called him Murphy. She was the one who first recognized him as Murphy.
Yeah,
and then he says, "Call me Murphy." She's the one who called you Murphy in the first place.
But this is the thing. But you don't know. She calls him Robo rather than RoboCop. She calls him Robo because she isn't sure if he's had the emotion inhibitor added in.
Right.
And so when he says something, says, "And call me Murphy," it reassures her that he is still who he is, not that.
That's true.
That Lazarus hasn't implanted the chip.
But then she also mentions her, her brother, who, we don't know anything about her or her family, and she's just like, as you know, I have it's like, okay.
A brother that doesn't call, yeah.
But so this scene of her death, like, again, it's this, like, I don't know what the law is, and I hate this depiction of corporations as able to deploy a assassination squad using machine gun on U.S. streets without anyone caring, and they are so happy. Okay, that's bad enough. The idea that they would happily gun down cops is so utterly ridiculous and offensive. I mean, it's like some QAnon believer's wet dream, that, I mean, it's just so ridiculous to me. And that's how, and then the staging of it is so clunky. The idea that her last words are "get them for me," like, it's not "remember your humanity." It's not, like, I can think of a million things better to say than "make sure you get revenge, Chuck Norris."
Mow those fuckers down. This doesn't get any better, and I've got some.
But also, so all of that is horrible, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is a death that I don't believe would ever happen in a million years. it caused by a situation I both don't believe would have happened in a million years and also don't understand on the principles of the movie's own logic. But also, you've seen these poor people in the church.
Yeah.
They're all innocent. As soon as he's shot, the people in the church who include the resistance fighters from earlier pop out machine guns and break through stained glass windows and start firing on the cops, which means that the Nazis were right and there were terrorists hiding in the church. And so I'm like, you failed on that level too.
Yes.
Like, it's shocking how wrong-headed the scene is.
Oh, it infuriates me because then they do leave because it gets worse. I mean, the thing is that it gets silly. This whole next section of being hidden undercover. Firstly, like they let RoboCop come, and my first instinct would be like, "This is the OCP asset. It's a robot. Of course, it has a tracking device in it. Like that should be your number one." No one says it until he actually points it out. RoboCop actually points it out.
Okay, but RoboCop also knows that himself.
Yes.
Right? It's established he knows it himself because he's the one who reveals it. He waits until he gets into their lair to reveal it.
Yeah. So that is beyond stupid. But he's also been shot in the heart with a grenade, and so he's sort of down to 25 or 12% efficiency or whatever. So he's laid up, and so they need to bring in Dr. Lazarus to fix him.
There's a reason you make this mistake of 25 to 12, and that's because as when in the church you see like he's at 75% efficiency, then he's going through the sewers and he says he's at 25% efficiency, and I'm like, how did you drop so quickly? I guess it was a really strenuous climb, RoboCop. You're not built to move around a lot. Then when he's being repaired later, he says he's at 25% efficiency, and you cut to RoboVision, and it says 12%.
12%, yeah.
There's something in every scene here that's just like it's designed to piss me off. The same way, like he collapses and can no longer move, and he collapses on his face with his arms kind of forward in an L shape, and then they're carrying him back into the lair, and he's flat on his back. He was frozen in place. He could how did he like? There's just something in every scene like this that and then the tracking device comes. It's like there's something in every scene.
This whole section. It's not just a scene. This whole section is wrong. Is so badly done. This whole scene with the resistance, or whatever, underground, is repeatedly badly done. Because they're constantly like, how do they pick him up? Because he's supposed to weigh a ton. Like he's supposed to weigh a lot. And so they're risking themselves again, dragging RoboCop around the sewers. And so they bring him in, and then they happen to have a metal table, like to put him on. It's all bizarre. And then he says, "Get Dr. Lazarus." And so the kid goes off. They don't send anyone. They send the kid, Nico.
Oh God.
And she managed to get into the police station. That's it. Finds
she
Dr.
walks
Lazarus.
Right into the police station, into the lab of RoboCop, and you sort of see some cops kind of glance at her and just keep walking. It's like, in every movie where people go to pains to infiltrate the police department, they should have just gotten a kid, because apparently they let kids anywhere
wander around. The thing that, and this I do put this at the feet of the director, is when Nico first confronts Lazarus. She's like, "I'm a friend of RoboCop," and she's kind of like narky and pissy with Dr. Lazarus. And Lazarus is like, "Well, he's not here, She's obviously given up and she's been fired, obviously, and stuff." But then she's like, "Yes, he told me to tell you something," and it's I forget what he. Oh, thank you for not erasing my memory.
Putting the chip in, yeah.
So why is it that Nico is in some stroppy little shit towards Lazarus? Like, "I'm RoboCop's friend, not you." When actually, you've been sent there to retrieve her. You know she can help him, and he's friends with RoboCop, and RoboCop trusts her. So why is she little shit? It really irritates me. Like this again, I'm like, this is just wrong choices made about how to present this scene. Like, it's just wrong.
Well, besides her just walking into the station, you're right about that.
Not just into RoboCop the station, into RoboCop's area.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would not be secure at all.
No.
But also, when did RoboCop tell her this? I mean, this is like, oh, he has not told her this.
Nope.
Like she says something that he hasn't told her, and then she replies with something that she wouldn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what it is, but it's like I'm watching it going like, how did she get in there? You're right, she's a little shit for no reason, and then she says something she shouldn't know, and Lazarus replies with something she shouldn't know. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. It's it's I don't know how to describe it. It's just these bits start to really get on my wick. Where I'm just like, this is just silly, and it's kind of doing my head in now. I'm getting really annoyed. I'm just watching this film and going like, this is this has got so many good ideas. I'm kind of like going, yeah, it's a good idea, it's good. And then you say it does things like this, from like, this is just bad filmmaking. These are bad choices. This is shortcuts. I mean, we should highlight this film is, I don't know how long is this film. This film's an hour and 44 minutes. So it's it's not the longest film. It's not it's not a 90-minute in and out. It's still got extra time. But it seems too short. They're constantly like, oh, we don't have time for that scene. We're not going to do that exposition or that bit. We're just going to assume that people figure it out. Um, and then but then Lazarus is they get a police van. I like the fact they do kind of indicate that the precinct's in a mess.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done it a few times. And there's a really cool scene later on when Robocop sort of turns up later. Um, when the guy, I want to talk about one of the other guys, but one guy just says, fine, if there's no police around, I'm going to go sort the looters out myself. Baseball bat and nails is all I need. So there is this indication of like they're short-handed and stuff. But yeah, Lazarus and they're going to steal this police van, drive back to, which is probably low-jacked, by the way, so they can probably track that van. And so they go back to the resistance, and she's able to help RoboCop, and they then have a kind of scene montage of him being fixed through his eyes, just because they've done it before. This one is nowhere near as good as
Yeah.
what's been done previously.
At least they have it, but again, this is like the PG-13 version
Yeah.
where the horror is like he wakes up and he's not supposed to be awake,
Yeah.
and they're kind of drilling something into him, as opposed to like, here's his arm. like all the just sheer body horror of the other two. But I mean, like, I like that Lazarus has joined the resistance, and that at least we get this scene. I mean, you know, this is not horrible, especially after what's preceded it.
Yeah. Oh no. Like, yeah.
This is the part with the heart, and
yeah. I mean, the bit with the heart's kind of good. I like that there's a nod, and there's some other little bits as well. Like they've sorted out his chest plate. They've buffed it out, and it's all looking fine, and all
I
that
don't know
kind of
how
stuff.
I thought they got a new one. I mean, I don't know how they got that looking so good, but it's a minor
The
complaint.
prop guy off screen was like, "Here it is. There we go. Fine, move on." But it leads to a scene like they've removed like Robocop's head. Oh, one of the things that this is weird, and I wanted to just wonder about this. This is one of the things that happens. So whilst Robocop's consciousness is sorting itself out, it goes back. He has his memories of his wife and all this other stuff, and then he thinks of Lois. And then we have this weird morphing scene where it's sort of like it has his original wife, played by the same actress, so fair play for bringing her back. She then morphs into Nancy Allen as Officer Lois, who then morphs into Dr. Lazarus.
Lazarus.
And then it remains as Lazarus as he wakes up. And I'm like, is this kind of some sort of loyalty thing he's transitioning? Is he fixated on women? Is this kind of like, I don't understand this thing at all? Like,
It's like Last Temptation of Christ. There's only one woman in many bodies.
mm,
Um, I no, I objected that like the background. It's sort of like
the lawnmower one?
2001,
Yeah.
except it like makes the Transformers the movie
Yeah.
version seem
Yeah.
like sophisticated. It looks bad.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the point is of like, I get that there are these three women, but this movie is so heavy-handed in its emotions, right? Like
Hmm.
every time they show him like identifying with Nico, they'll superimpose memories of his own son
Yeah.
and then go back and forth for like 30 seconds, and you're like, I got it.
Yeah.
And like, RoboCop 1 and 2 wouldn't even have done the superimposition. They would have shown you that stuff at different times and
Hmm.
just caused you to piece it together. This one is like, did you get it? I'm not sure you got it. Let's do this another 5 times to make sure.
Yeah.
It's like this is like RoboCop's dreaming, and what he's dreaming of are the 3 women in his life that
Mm.
matter, and he's lost 2 of them.
Yes. But now he's got Lazarus.
Again.
And you have this thing of like the sequence where sort of he talks to Nico and she sort of says, were you always like this? And he's like, or do you, have you had children or whatever or son? And he said before, and she's like, before what? And it's quite, again, she's supposed to be a bright kid, you know, before what? And again, like he has a memory and it shows a flashback to the first film and you see him being shot as Murphy. But at some point, like even a kid should be like, oh shit, yeah, like you weren't always Robocop.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I got that. Um,
And this is where RoboCop sees that her parents are dead from having scanned the police database,
show
which
it,
I'm
yeah.
not sure exactly why he did earlier,
He
if
was
he just
looking for
wanted.
something. He was looking for information about what the rehabs were doing and this other stuff. And it shows his information spike, which again
Yeah.
was only shown in the first and third films. But
But we
yeah,
see that her parents are dead. I mean, I
mm,
don't know if he's flipped through everybody they've arrested. He seems to be,
don't know.
I don't
Downloaded it
know
all.
exactly why. But, how have they died? Are these concentration murder camps, death
Yeah, that's
camps? I
never
mean,
resolved, never explained, never resolved. They're just dead because we want to be able to. We don't want to have to worry about that because we want to create a newfound family out of Robo,
yeah.
Lazarus, and Nico. Let's be clear. He strokes ahead in a very Robo fashion. But then when he does have his dream eventually, and I hate all that thing of like stroking her head, his hand does this, he does the Robo thing, and then he has the dream, and it's Lois, and he of all the times in both the films we've seen him have this kind of like moments of like the pain of having these memories and stuff. In this one, he sort of twitches a bit and then just sort of stands up and is like, I have to leave. And everyone, even Lazarus, sort of gets what's going to happen or what he's about to do. Um, I don't. It just feels weird this moment when it's like, oh, you also sorry note. We should also note that whilst he was being sorted, he runs when he wakes up again. He runs through his directives, and Directive 4 has been deleted, which it was done in the second film as well. But that's fine. We'll address that. Which allows him to then take revenge on the rehabs.
Mhm.
And so we do get the scene of him going to the police station and speaking to the sergeant and
And
saying,
yeah, kudos to the sergeant. I mean, he I forget his name, but he's quite good, and he says, like, you're wanted. He's like, RoboCop's like, yeah,
yeah,
like, this is one of the few nice dialogue
yeah,
exchanges.
Sergeant Reed, but he's played by Robert Dukey, and I think he's great in all these films.
Yeah,
He's a great continuation. Yeah, but I like that. And you've got another guy coming in. You got a RoboCop, you got a vampire cop, you got a ghost cop, and he's sort of like, and you can see like Reed's just stood there going like, piss off, like you're doing me head in. Yeah, but then Robo comes in and says, "You better call the fire department." You see, yeah, where's the rehab staging area? Down the hall and to the right. You can't miss it. And so that's it. And it goes off. And again, this should do callback. This doesn't use the RoboCop 2 theme. This uses the RoboCop 1 theme throughout, which is great. I love it, but it's clearly making that sort of distinction. And so he attacks the rehabs in their base. And a bit like, do you know what this weirdly felt like? Do you remember that bit in Terminator 2 when John Connor sort of explains to the Terminator, like, you can't kill anyone, all right?
yeah,
So he sort of he pushes the desk through the window at Cyberdyne Systems. There's all the police out there, and he's got the minigun and he's opening fire on them. But at the end of it, like he's trying, he hasn't killed anyone, like no casualties, right? And he's sort of quite pleased. It's all about distraction. That's kind of what this feels like because he sort of opens
Mhm.
fire randomly, but doesn't actually seem to kill or hit anyone. And even
Yeah.
when there's an explosion, it just blows a guy through like a hallway, and he's still fine. it's the most bloodless revenge taking ever.
It's like it's kind of satisfying. You know,
Yes.
yeah, like it's cool seeing RoboCop using the
Yeah,
flamethrower,
yeah, that's cool.
on his arm. It's a little, sort of Judge Dredd with his gun.
Hmm.
Um, you know, it's kind of like, I mean, the best I could say is that it's like very successful for the limitations that have been put on it, both
Yes.
of budget and of hitting that PG-13. Because you're right, it is bloodless and it is it's like, watching G.I. Joe with laser guns or,
Mm.
in the cartoon or, RoboCop with laser guns and the RoboCop cartoon. Um, this is that RoboCop. It's not RoboCop of 1 and 2.
No.
At one point, so he's setting stuff on fire uh with his arm. At one point, he's confronted by a guy in front of him, and rather than just shoot him, he turns to a box of explosives.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this, Scott, but all police stations, especially of mercenaries, are filled with old-timey boxes of dynamite.
Yeah. Just with
Which he
Acme written on
proceeds,
the side.
yes, which he proceeds to burn with his flamethrower, although he's standing next to it.
Yeah. Yes. And we've seen he can
That,
just take damage. So it's almost like it's yeah, it's um so silly.
But I mean, like the guys right in front of him set him on fire.
Yeah.
It's so stagey, and ridiculous.
No, it is. And this is what I'm saying. It feels bloodless. Like, it feels silly. Like, this is kind of like instead of just like instead of like the Terminator and Terminator One attacking the police station where you just hear the screams and the gunshots and all that kind of stuff while Sarah Connor hides beneath the desk and you're like, what is going on out there? Like, that's bloodless but still terrifying. This is kind of like you say, this is harping onto that cartoon. It's ready for the TV show. This is, I'm taking revenge, but it's all property damage, no collateral damage, no people. But then it's sort of like, where's McTaggart? And it has the interrogation mode, which you've seen from the first film, so I like that as well. Like, um, but again, it just kind of feels um low rent.
Yeah. Well, low rent is the word. Yeah. I mean, even when I forgot to mention during that repair scene, the actor playing RoboCop is breathing heavily
Oh,
through that entire scene, and you
I
just see
forgot
his
about that.
chest plate going
Yeah.
up and down, and it's like you couldn't get a better shot than that. Move
Oh
the
no, sorry.
camera.
Not just could you not get a better shot. You reshoot that. You take that and go,
Yes,
oh, that's terrible. Nobody do that again.
adjust the camera angle.
Yeah.
Like, it's mind-boggling. But I thought about two different TV shows. One is, even during the initial car chase, where Lois's car overturns, I thought,
Mm.
oh, this is the era of Dukes of Hazzard,
Yes.
where nobody dies, but where there's car stunts all the time, right?
Hmm.
And so it's like, it's very Police Academy, and cops ramming each other's cars endlessly, but
Hmm.
but it has that sort of like, oh, we can't show people's faces being blown up, so we're going to show cars getting blown up and overturned, instead. And so I felt that sort of like Dukes of Hazzard car stunt substitution for the violence there. Here, this feels very like in the raid of the rehabs, feels very like the TV series,
Hmm.
like
Yes.
it just feels very low budget, very just like, oh, that's a guy in a Nazi-esque uniform standing there while he's in the middle of a fight.
Yes. Yeah, it does. It just felt very TV. I mean, this felt like, don't damage the sets too much. We might want to use them again later. Um, yeah. So this all feels kind of low rent. Um, but it moves us on to kind of, I don't know, like again, allusions to old Detroit being sleazy. We have Robocop going, there's a hotel downtown that's now populated by rehabs. And it's
And
clearly,
tons of prostitutes.
and it's basically a brothel. And you see some young girl, and we'll get to that bit outside, but you then see that McTaggart, this is you get two things. You finally sort of find out that McTaggart is in direct communication with Kiyomitsu in Japan. But also he has a spy. We sort of suggested, but he have a spy on the inside of the Resistance, and it's just basically this is so like Duffy all over again, which
Oh
is
yeah,
um, so that
it's
kind of
Stephen Root.
it's
Yeah,
Stephen Root. I was looking for the name. Yeah, it's played by Stephen. And again, an actor I like, who I think
yeah.
is great and stuff. Um, but he sort of has clearly given up information about what's going on there. And then at the same time as this is going on, I should say, Otomo has now got a map and is about to attack the Resistance
Jesus.
in their in their thing. So
Where does Satomo find the map?
uh,
He
he,
finds it
what
just
he
lying on the ground.
no, he finds, so when he
Oh yeah, he
after
goes
the
into the
church.
sewers and kills these three random guys,
Yes, and one
and
of them happens
finds
to
a
have a
transparency
yeah.
on the ground.
No, it's in the guy's jacket. It's in the guy. He
Okay,
takes it from the guy's jacket. Yeah.
okay. Then he goes to a gas station,
Yeah.
gets punches his
Random
fist,
map.
gets a random map, goes, slices through a metal bar just to show, like, I'm a ninja and my blade's sharp, and I'm not paying for this map. I don't know why he couldn't pay for the map, but it's Terminator, right? Um, and then sits in a gas station, and the transparency perfectly matches up with that map, and he's able to find what the route is. That's got to be one of just, I mean, that is really painful.
Yeah. Oh, it's
I'm
awful.
sure that bothered you.
Oh no. I watched it and I was like, this kind of feels like the kind of thing I would see in a cartoon of this era. So it was just so sort of, it's so, again, low rent, so ridiculous. Where he just sort of happens to go, oh, this has happens to line up with the streets. Why would it line up with the streets when they're all underground? Surely it should be a sewer map that they should be looking at.
Yes. But
Yeah.
also all maps are the same scale.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yeah.
also if you have instructions on the way to get to the secret lair, you usually keep it in a transparency so it can be superimposed over a map in your pocket.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no coding, there's no protection, just a transparency that people carry around. It's so ridiculous. So but whilst this is so these things are sort of running at parallel. So this means that Robocop is out of the Resistance underground lair, den, whatever, when they're attacked. So they become attacked at the same time that Robo is doing his revenge. But Robo goes to the hotel again. Like there's some interesting moments. Like he turns up, saves the prostitute. We've seen that, like, there's going to be not Duffy, sorry, Stephen Root's character has turned up and said, like, I can give you some information about where they are, and he's going to get paid off, and he's going to lead the rehabs to the what's it base, which he does. But before that, we get a Robocop turns up at the hotel, asks where McTaggart is, and the guy at the bottom just says, "Room 212." He says, "I hope you have insurance," which is hilarious.
Yeah.
My ribs are tickled throughout due to the one-liners, and this is the scene.
Roger Moore couldn't have done it better.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where, like you say, he goes. The guy even says the lift door sticks. So Robocop just bends it out of shape, this metal door, but then has to shoot his way through a wooden door 2 seconds later, interrupting the meeting between Stephen Root and McTaggart, who escape.
Who both get away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
McTaggart through a window, jumping on, again, James Bond, Roger Moore style, onto what is it called? Umbrella sort of.
Oh, the parasol kind of thing outside of the
outside
hotel.
the hotel.
Yeah. And then gets into the rehab van.
Is this where RoboCop commandeers the pimp car?
Exactly, that's what I was about to say. Yes.
Because we have not hit the lows of this movie quite yet.
Because McTaggart sort of escapes in the rehab police van. They drive off, and then RoboCop exits the hotel and, as a pimp, basically threatening a prostitute. And RoboCop says, "I need to commandeer your vehicle." And the pimp turns around and says, "What you want, motherfucker?" And sort of opens the flick knife, drops the flick knife, hands the keys over, and then RoboCop is in a pink, tricked out,
purple,
tricked out Cadillac pimpmobile, and then sort of continues to chase. Um, do you know what this reminded me of? This scene. I was trying to sort of see that. Do you remember Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines? And they were like, "Oh, we've got to introduce humor." So there's the scene of like they want to replicate Terminator 2, um, but they wanted to sort of introduce humor for some reason. So Arnie takes a stripper's clothing, and it includes a pair of glass sunglasses that are shaped like stars.
Okay.
And so it's that kind of thing, isn't it? Like we're gonna do a senior no, we're gonna do a car chase, but we're gonna have this, and like, but we're gonna add in something silly to do it. And,
Hmm.
or like when the Terminator goes in Terminator 3 goes into a gas station and says talk to the hand. It's like, oh no, this doesn't work. um, I do feel a little middle on this because I do find this
Yeah,
quite funny, but it still feels kind of too silly.
I do too. I mean, I think that the pimp is sort of funny how he turns around with the knife and then sees it's RoboCop and drops it and says like, "No
Mm.
problem, officer."
Yeah,
But of course, he's also a stereotypical black pimp, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
It's racially very uncomfortable in its representation. And it's sort of like I can see how RoboCop driving a pimp mobile would be funny and seem like a good idea on paper. But I also kind of think that this is one of those ideas where I think like this might have worked in, under a different director.
Yes.
Um, like this in RoboCop 1 or 2, there would be this odd, like, I mean, they go to such great lengths to juxtapose like the glorious silvery sheen of RoboCop to the dilapidated Detroit.
Hmm.
And there would be this odd juxtaposition, with him in the pimp car. Um, and it might have worked. Here it's just kind of it's sort of like that's a good I don't hate it, but especially as that car comes apart and
That's funnier when the car's
yeah.
coming apart and it's just Robo driving like a chassis at one point. That sort of is funnier. Um, but yeah, it
But
kind
it's
of
not, yeah, it's not
it's
a high mark.
no, no. But it's one of
I
those
mean,
things
this
I can
is
imagine on set, like when they were doing this, I can imagine someone was like, "This is gonna slay! Like this is gonna kill people! Amazing!" Like someone clearly thought this was hilarious.
yeah, and I think in a more again in like a brutal RoboCop 1 or 2
Yeah.
world, this kind, where we've seen, I mean, we did see RoboCop kill the two people who were attempting to rape this woman,
Hmm.
in front of. So like I'm so relieved to see RoboCop murder people.
Yeah.
I know I hate to say that sentence, but it's true. And it's almost like rape is the one thing that, you're allowed to murder someone for. I guess murder doesn't qualify. But
Mm.
okay. I mean, but in that dark, just like uber violent, seeing faces being torn up by bullets and, hookers stabbing people's eyes out and whatnot, RoboCop driving a pitmobile would seem funny, would seem like
Yes.
an ironic breath of fresh air, a breath of levity in the midst of all of this chaos and horror. Here, it just seems it's in a sea of kind of not PG nonsense. And so it just feels like more PG nonsense.
Yeah. Exactly. It's yes. And even the chase is kind of weak. It's not. It's
Yeah.
fine, but it's kind of weak.
Well, the way McTaggart gets away is the wad of cash that he keeps in his pocket to pay off the informant, Stephen
Hmm.
Root, which he apparently, again, just like I have problems with every scene, right? They can't even pay off an informant without doing it in a way that I'm like, why do you keep this wad of cash in your pocket like this, ready to pull out at a moment's notice? But, he throws it into the street and these kids run into the street.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, that's like somebody's first idea from a screenplay, right? Like that's a high school screenwriter's idea. RoboCop skids the pitmobile to a stop. Drive around them.
Yeah.
Like, well, drive onto the grass. Is RoboCop like, you know, must protect suburban grass? Like Directive 4 was added.
Yeah. Municipal codes, HOAs. Um, yeah, no, I agree. I can see what it's that thing that this is that thing that I'm telling you. Like this constantly feels small and low budget, And it feels like this should be a bigger scene. Like just kids playing hockey in the scene, fine. But it feels like there should be more to it. Like you say, why can't Robocop go around it? Why can't they do this? Why can't... Yeah, I don't know, it feels like this should be good. There should be some kids playing on the street. This should be doing something. Like it feels like it should be the street should be more busy. That this is a bigger issue. That you know.
Well, I also think style goes a long way, right?
Hmm.
Like we've said this feels low rent in your words, this feels TV, you know. I can imagine the same scene in like the Warren Beatty Dick Tracy movie.
Yes.
And you know, with like Al Pacino in the back of that van laughing as he drives away as the kids and it would totally work. And it
Hmm.
would know it's tongue in cheek, but it would work. And Warren Beatty would step out of the pitmobile, you know, looking disheveled, but you know, and it would totally work. And it would know that it's ridiculous, but it would have such a sense of style and panache that it
Hmm.
would be sold. Here it just feels like a movie of the week.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Flat.
whereas RoboCop
Very.
1 and 2 have so much panache.
Yeah. There's like a flatness to it. And that's kind of where this continues, is to just feel flat. Like everything that this from this point on is just kind of small, flat, and kind of almost like perfunctory. That's the only way I can describe this. I mean, we've had the other thing we should highlight is when Robo was being fixed, they'd introduced the flight pack, which they stole from the police impound, and there's now this thing of like, if you're broken, you can roll into this and it will recharge you, which is again
I
stupid
forgot
beyond
that. Yeah,
it's stupid beyond belief.
it's
So
a
anyway,
portable charger for the toy RoboCop. I mean, let's be honest. Look, it's let's be honest. That's what this
that's what it
thing
is.
is.
It's a battery pack. It's basically a battery pack. Um, yeah, but he goes back to the Resistance hideout. They've all been attacked already. Stephen Root's character's been killed. They've been sort of wiped out, and then he is attacked by Ultimo. There's other stuff going on. Like it gets kind of convoluted. Like Lazarus has been captured. Nico's going to break her out. I don't care. It means nothing.
Okay, I have to just say the Nico breakout scene is so painfully bad as Lazarus is like opens a grate and it's a metal grate that bends because it's obviously not made of
Yeah.
metal and it's just bends enough to squeeze a kid through. And you know, why, you know, this is so obviously a plot contrivance to only let Nico escape.
Yeah.
She later visits Lazarus because she can get into the police station. Kids can go anywhere. She's just an induct. How did she get into, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
But this is also the scene of the apparently from a laptop as well. It has a camera in and she can connect to anything because she then broadcasts from this small room to say OCP is lying to you. They're ripping down people's homes. You know, basically come out and help. This that thing I said before doesn't result in anything. No one steps up. It means nothing. Like more police from across the city should turn up at this precinct. There should be more to this.
I also hate when people the hijacked signals, right? Like it
Uh,
works in you know, the Keaton Nicholson Batman. But it's very rare that like, you know, a hijacked signal, you know, really works. I really feel like this is a G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s
yeah,
where it's like,
yeah,
you know, them driving off at a pitmobile would be totally in sync. Hijack
hmm,
the, you know, the airwaves, totally in sync. All this kind of stuff that would, you know, where you said like, you know, this wouldn't bother me in a cartoon, but it's yeah, I mean, we would give that a pass because it's a
yeah.
silly G.I. Joe
Cartoon,
cartoon with
yeah.
lasers.
Exactly. I think that's the problem. I kind of think this has been the PG-13 mentality is seeping into it all over it, and that's the problem, including the fight with Otomo in the
Mm-hmm.
which is this is one of the worst fights in any film put to celluloid. Like this is awful. This is horrendous to watch in every way. Because clearly your man Robert John Burke can't move very well in the suit, in the Robocop suit. Neither could Weller, to be fair, right?
Yeah.
Robocop's not designed to be a fast moving thing, but this ninja is. All right. So you have this lump of metal that gets kicked over and kicked in the head. And it sort of says, you know, you are under arrest for assaulting a police officer. And then he cuts his fingers off. and destruction of police property.
I
So
kind of like that.
that's funny, right? They got these little lines. Then it cuts his arm off, conveniently,
Yes. Thank you for saying this, Scott.
in the same way that just because it means his gun arm can go on, which,
It cuts right along the
yeah.
joint without cutting any of the connecting.
But I'm thinking, if this
Because he's a
sword,
toy, and
yeah.
so when the lightsaber hits, it cuts the removable arm right at the joint. I
So
mean,
all I'm thinking is though, right? If Otomo is designed to be this ninja warrior, right, with this unbreakable sword that can cut through whatever,
Mhm.
why did he not just jump down and cut Robocop's head off from behind?
Mhm.
Like it's or run him through with a sword or something. Do the Robocop 2 thing where he just sort of like cracks his head open and destroys the brain. Like none of the it is the most clunky. It's like, so then Robocop's reaching for his gun arm, and just in order to give him time, Otomo is stood around like some computer game character ready for a fight because he's just sort of like holding his sword and doing this. Like it's like watching the start of Street Fighter 2, just so he can connect his arm, and then as he comes in for the swing, Robocop blows his head off with a rocket. It's awful. Like everything about this is slow. It is clunky. It's 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 some of the worst action fight put on cellular. It's dreadful. Like it makes no sense. It doesn't work. No one comes out of it looking good. Like it's dreadful.
it's disappointing, especially because Ultimo's been set up.
Yeah,
And
to be ace.
I don't mind the idea of RoboCop being slow and being, that being exploited by a more nimble fighter. But you're right, the logic isn't there. And you say this is one of the worst. I mean, I would say I have seen the direct-to-video Steven Seagal movies, and
That's true.
I'm not sure this is the worst, but this is
No,
in
all right.
that category.
Let me put it this way though. Seagal is kind of like silly to watch and it's hilarious. Like, and that's kind of unintentional. And I know this is unintentional, but like this isn't like some old man thinking he's a martial arts expert and isn't. This is like just they've just didn't choreograph this in any way that works for either of the fighters in this scene. There's no acknowledgement that, like, okay, he's got this excellent sword that can cut through things. All right, then Robocop needs to grab other things to act as a defense.
Hmm.
We've even seen a scene before this. I should highlight. All right, one of the guys that gets killed where he steals the map out from him managed to get a cheap shot in and hit Otomo in the face with a metal pole, breaking his jaw. And that's when you sort of realize he's not human because he's able to adjust his jaw and stuff. Robocop doesn't even get a shot in like that.
Yeah.
It makes him look. It makes Robocop look crap.
He does look crap through this whole thing because really all this guy does is flip around and knock him down
Yeah.
again and again, much like a toy figure being knocked over flat. And then he just gets a shot in and blows his head off. That's the full extent of this fight.
Yeah.
So
But Robocop
I
is
mean,
now down and damaged. Like he's having to drag himself across the floor like he's been through the same fight he was with the rehabs at the beginning of the film. It
well,
makes
he is knocked down and damaged, but you're forgetting that when RoboCop is at his weakest, if you've bought the jetpack accessory for the toy, you can recharge him on the fly.
Can we just say that? I just want to point out this idea of the damage that Robocop can take, right? Because at this point, he's still looking, he's had his arm cut off, but he's looking immaculate, right? The body armor is still protected, but he's dragging himself across the floor to watch the broadcast being made by Lazarus. In the first film, he was shot at, he was blown up, he has a bunch of scrap metal dropped on him, and he has a pipe, a massive piece of sort of metal stuck through him. At the end of the film, that's all done by Bodica and stuff. Still manages to get up and drive to OCP headquarters, kill an ED-209, and go up and finish the film.
Murder somebody
Murder somebody, yeah, and then basically sort of like be recognised as Murphy. Like he was able to continue after all the damage of being shot at by all the police and everything. In this, someone sneezes.
In RoboCop 2, he's pushed through walls,
yeah,
and winds up falling off the top of a skyscraper.
Yeah.
And recovers faster than he does from this ninja fight.
In this, someone farts close to him, he starts to sort of malfunction. Like he is so inconsistent in his
Yes.
attaining damage in this film. It's
Well, it's just
childish.
like this. The systems at 75%, systems at 25%. I mean 12%. I mean,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
It's really embarrassing. But he gets into the jetpack, and we cut to the streets of well, we cut back to the police station, and Johnson is now sort of like berating them and telling them that they're going to be charged for the criminal damage of RoboCop and other bits, um, which
The
makes no
cops quit
sense.
en masse.
And then they quit en
No,
masse, yeah. And this
which
isn't a
is
cop show. I like that scene.
I
It kind of
I kind of
works.
like that scene.
Yeah,
Although again, I'm like, I really hate how at this point the movie is making us identify with the cops and keeping like the cops, like they strike in RoboCop 2, but
mm.
and they even, hit Lewis's car she drives in and call her a scab. But every time RoboCop needs them, they're willing to go into combat
What
to
are we gonna
support
do,
their fellow
Robo?
officer.
Yeah, what's
Yeah, I
bothering you,
mean,
RoboCop? Yeah, I hate them.
and yeah, I mean, you pointed out that that's a flaw. And I'm willing to overlook it, but I agree with you. Here, it's just kind of like the extent the movie goes to try to insulate the cops from any blame
Yeah,
for being part of a fascist enterprise run by the people who employ them.
exactly. No, that's a really good point. That's exactly what they are. They are defended from being anything other than, like the good guys for the most part. And then it's Reed that sort of leads the walkout, and all these other cops just sort of. But what's funny is, right, as you say, they're supposed to be sort of like shown as the good guys. They still leave like prisoners and criminals just
Mm.
randomly just walk away from them. I like the fact as well that Johnson. This is the thing we've seen that like the because he threatens their pension and all this other stuff, your pension benefits, and he says you can't do this. You're employees of OCP. I like the fact that there's still this kind of um, disjoint between what OCP executives think is important and what these people think is important. Going back to like um going back to the old man sort of saying like behave yourselves in the second film, it has been completely ineffectual. This feels kind of the same, which I like. That makes me chuckle.
Yeah,
So
I what I get from it is like, the way that OCP is, um feels that things like pensions or give them a little extra money, uh can buy anyone off.
yeah,
And you really get that mentality there. So, I do like that idea. Even though I don't like, you know, the moral armor given to these cops, who
yes,
really, let's be clear, are not really relevant to that final scene either.
yeah. And that's the point I wanted to make. So this is the thing, like you've got like the guys in Cadillac Heights, are like, what are we going to do? Because CCH Pound has been killed, and who was Bertha, who was leading the
The leader.
resistance, and so they sort of give it up, and they know that OCP is coming, and then Reed and like four police turn up in a couple of cars. Like it looks. This is the thing. It looks small. This should look like a real battle. Do you know what I mean? There should be like a notable sort of piece of history that this group of cops stood by and had this fight. But it just looks small. It's on a single street. It feels like it's not like a running battle or anything like that.
Yeah, this needs to be shot like Black Hawk Down, you
Yes.
know? Like this needs to be running battles through the streets, Molotov cocktails being thrown off the top of buildings. Like this
Yeah.
needs to be chaos shot with a steady cam, just like looks like I can't believe this is happening in American City. This is
Yes.
the cops versus the mercenaries. Um, I don't need it to be that, but I mean, this is the climax of the entire RoboCop trilogy, right?
Mm.
I mean, this is
Yeah.
the climax of RoboCop versus OCP.
Exactly. This should feel epic. This should be a massive fight, and he should be earned. And I think this is the thing about the police should have become so much more intrinsic in this film. If they'd have sort of integrated them much more into the story, as we said, that split, the police being split between those that
Hmm.
have joined the rehabs and those that sort of hate them. And that's not a cop's job. We're there to protect people. Like, yeah, all right, that's propaganda, but like still, it would work for the story. This should be like brother versus brother kind of thing, like where the police are sort of like taking them,
Hmm.
And but I like this sort of thing of McTaggart's solution. Though is he grabs a bunch of punks and thugs and arms them to enter things. I like that to an extent. I think
Hmm.
that's an interesting idea. That feels very Miller again. Um, but
Yeah, although much as I feel like McTaggart and this whole rehab force is not believable,
yeah,
I feel that like again, they're not gonna just take these, murderers and gangs, and send them out.
mm,
Um, but I kept thinking like how much I wanted George Miller to direct this.
yeah,
And how he would have directed a running battle of the streets with like guys in crazy costumes, and the resistance, like doing crazy stuff, and how wild this would have been.
yeah. Well, this is where the flight suit kind of. I don't know. I don't know if it's a cop out or what, but basically, yeah, like Robo, they're beaten, and you see sort of Sergeant Reed and a couple of other guys sort of pinned down, and one of them says like, they're winning, aren't they, Sarge? Um, and then you hear the sort of the whistle of an engine coming in, and all of a sudden, sort of like there's RoboCop flying in his jetpack, and it's like, yeah, Robo, and he's got like his machine gun arm starts shooting people. He blows up the tank with his rocket grenade launcher, and it's all over. That's it.
Yeah.
And then he sort of hovers over them, and then flies off. And I'm like, hang on, sorry, that's it? Is that it? Like bullshit. Like this, as you said, should have been a running battle, and it should have been much more dramatic. They're like, it could have been like I want to see the real sort of effect of like the noise that I've associated with this, right? And this is the thing I've thought about this after watching this film. There are certain noises I associate with the RoboCop films, and one of them is the noise of his walking.
Hmm.
Right, they have like a thud. There's a very recognizable sort of whir and thud that goes with his walking, right? And I was like, you need that. Those noises are what sort of like make an impact. And that's the whistling of the jetpack is kind of it means nothing. Robocop flying is fine, but like what I would prefer is, like you say, that running and gunning battle, and then being pinned down and being like, we've we've got nothing.
Mm.
We've got nothing. We've got nothing left. Like we're out of ammo. We're low on ammo. We're about to be ambushed. And what should be is, they get to a point, and Robo should be at the head of a bunch of other cops that have come in from
Hmm.
other precincts, and you should
Oh,
hear it
yeah.
because the noise you should hear is a and it's just, and out of the like smoke clears and RoboCop just walks through, and just as that resistance about to get shot, like, or even the gun, I'd even have the gun, like someone's about to shoot Reed, and just and that the big RoboCop gun just takes them out, and they all look, and then RoboCop walks out of the smoke with a bunch of other cops, reinforcements. Like this should be a land battle. This should be a sort of a real sort of you know
Or even just the horror of like seeing the that triangular muzzle
mm,
flash of that gun in the midst of, tear gas,
yeah.
filling an alleyway, and you just hear that, that rapid fire gun, and you're like, oh, he's killing people in that smoke.
Well,
Relatively low budget, but super effective doing it with sound. And
that's what I'm saying. Do the thing that, like, the scene we saw from he takes out the drug den in the first film, and he takes on Kane's drug house in the second film, where he walks in and it's just him doing those daft ass positions that look cool, but like just shooting and people falling all around him. You're right. Have it through the tear gas, but have just the muzzle flare, but have it in those different positions so you know what's going on, and have the
yeah,
music dun 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 dun. Like have that, but have RoboCop just doing that shit. That's it. This is kind of cool for like a second, and then I'm like, it's actually kind of lame. This should be so much bigger. It really should be like this should be old versus new, brother versus brother. It should feel like a proper civil war
yeah,
in Detroit, and it
yeah. Real
fails.
Detroit coming apart at the seams. And I think
Yeah.
that would have had an important message going forward, not only for the LA riots.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, we've been through Watts riots and tons of riots in the past, but also through Black Lives Matter. And,
Yeah.
seeing how most cops are doing their best and, got in it to help people, but there are cops who are in it to drive tanks and, on a power trip.
Yeah.
And it would have held up a lot better for that. And instead, what we get is, him deploying a rocket launcher and basically blowing up 3 vehicles.
Yeah.
And because of this scale of things, that's it.
Yeah.
What you said about sound is fascinating because, like in that documentary on Amazon, they go through the sound effects of the first RoboCop, and it's clearly, mirrored in RoboCop 2, where it's like, every step, they're taking chains and like driving them into surfaces similar to what RoboCop is walking on. They had like tapes for like every little motion he made. They had, like 20 different versions of the words. Then they had like these other sound effects that just conveyed his mood, so it's like the actual sound of his mechanisms varied based on the mood they
Nice.
were trying to
Yeah.
communicate. And you start noticing this and you start realizing, in addition to that, like all the little like accenting synth sounds that are added, in that movie, not to mention the soundtrack, which was
Oh,
original,
yeah.
unlike this. And so you have this like massive layering of sound and multiple sound effects constantly going off that are telling you in all these subtle ways what to feel and, making RoboCop feel real in this setting. All of that feels very missing from this film.
Yes. 100%. Yeah. I think it adds to the flatness of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what I wanted to see. This ending should be, that like the sound. I just feel the sounds are important.
Yeah.
Um,
No, they make the movie. I mean, the RoboCop suit is awesome, but by
mm,
this movie, they think it's enough to put a guy in a RoboCop suit, right?
yes.
And that's what people are there to see. But actually, that's part of cinema is an audio visual medium,
Mm.
and the audio, you take the score off of most movies, and it has zero emotional effect. You add that score, and we're crying,
Oh, yeah. Well, I think, um, the best version of this I always think of is the story of Halloween, the John Carpenter film. Like it was shown to a couple of executives before the score was added, and they were like, "Oh, we're dead in the water. Like this is crap." And then it was shown 4 days later with the score, and these same guys were like, "Oh shit! Like no, this is going to scare people to death. Like it makes all the difference." Um, and so yeah, I do feel it in this. Like they've put the score in, but it feels a bit like there's a recent example of this. It's a film I like, but the Ghostbusters Afterlife, the rebooty kind of thing that happened.
Mhm.
The not the latest one, Frozen Empire did it, but the Afterlife did it worse. Is there's like a ghost chase scene in that where they basically just go take a chunk of the Ghostbusters soundtrack, like not just the theme tune, but like here's a chunk of the soundtrack of like the score, and we'll just overplay it over the scene because I'm watching the film going, I know the scene this is from in the original film, and it's kind of different. It doesn't. It just feels like they've gone. Oh, people will hear the music and they'll associate it. We haven't got to do our own music. We can just do that. And that's the same thing, isn't it? You go like, it's just lazy. It just doesn't work. So yeah. So I think this whole thing feels flat, and it leads to again, like they want to have multiple endings. They then flies to OCP Tower, confronts. I don't even give a shit at this point. A couple of Otomo
Yeah.
turn up.
Oh, there are a couple more.
Yeah. Well, one of
Like,
them's no. One of them's the one whose head got blown up. I think.
no, I don't
No.
think so. That's a new one, and RoboCop machine guns him in the face. So I will
Mm.
say the best special effects in this whole, maybe it is the same one. I don't know, but I mean, who gives a
It
shit?
doesn't matter.
But
Yeah.
I will say like the special effects that I'm most pleased with are the first Otomo moving his chin,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and then this cracky, very like
Yeah.
Akira, awesome
Yeah.
looking, fucked up face of this guy after he gets machine gun in the face by RoboCop. I don't know what it says that I'm like this horrible character who should not exist and is a
It,
supremely bad choice as a villain for RoboCop. Uh, that the best special effects are associated with him, but
I don't know,
those were the only moments I was
yeah.
impressed by.
No, I agree. Because they look physical, they look practical, and they stand out because of that. Because everything else doesn't. Because the flying scene looks awful. Even like Robocop coming through the window at OCP Tower and cracking through the glass just looks like he's flying on a cord. It looks like he's running on a monorail. Like it looks horrible. It looks so horrible. I'm sure the glass breaks before he even touches it. Like it
Well,
has
the glass just shatters completely, like,
yeah,
perfectly to the edges. And
yeah. It has no dynamism. It kind of he doesn't move at all. He just sort of floats through the window. And then he fights these two Otomo. Ripcord as the CEO does a runner.
okay,
And
so
I
the
don't care.
two,
I hate
these
this
two
ending so
Otomo,
much.
as they're fighting, the girl does her computer thing, and so they identify each other as the villain, and they
Because what through
simultaneously
yeah,
chop each other's heads off.
yeah, through what?
That's
Wi-Fi?
yeah.
Bluetooth?
I don't know.
I hate this whole ending. I hate everything about this ending. It's beyond
Okay,
awful.
so beyond the hacking the Otomos and then the Otomos delivering simultaneous kill strokes, which also are to the head, just
Yes.
like he blew up the first one's head. It's like you couldn't even vary the way they die. Then
But because
McTaggart.
which may not actually matter because if he's blown the head up of the previous one and if it's come back, surely that doesn't matter then.
I'm not even sure he's come back. Like, I
No.
mean, I'm checked out, but and then McTaggart reveals that this briefcase that you've seen earlier when he was talking to the
Hmm.
Japanese CEO, and he said, "I'm not sure it's time to deploy that yet." I don't know what he was talking about deploying because actually, this is a bomb that triggers when an Otomo dies. Why would you have that?
I think it was something
Uh,
about destroying, like flattening Cadillac Heights, but it's never clear. I don't know why that would work. I don't know the point of it.
And if
It's
I mean, I guess you can machine gun people in the street, so you might as well detonate a nuclear bomb or whatever the hell it is in a civilian neighborhood. I mean, why would you? I don't understand why that exists. And also, then he says, the range of it is like 30 feet. It's like, it's like 10 meters or something. Like, you have like 30 seconds. Like, you could run 200 meters.
yeah.
What are you doing? So it's like, even by the terms of, but then we see the explosion from outside and it like seems like it's doing massive damage, and it
Well,
even
because
makes
sorry,
the whole screen
before
go
you get to that,
white.
I wanted to say yeah. Before I say that, I just want to. That's just a transition that's just badly chosen. But I also
But
like the fact that like to
its
get out of the
range is
room,
like 10
yeah.
meters. So
But to
yeah,
get out of the thing, RoboCop rolls across the floor to roll into his jetpack to fly out so that he can grab Nico and Lazarus and fly out the building. Um, because and Nico is sat on this jetpack because it doesn't heat up at all. There's no heat being
right.
dispersed out of this pack. Like it, I hate everything. I hate this ending. Like it's anyway. He
Well,
flies back to. So go
don't
on.
forget, as he turns on the jetpack, it shoots flames out that burn McTaggart's feet.
So it does heat up, yes, because there's flex.
Okay, except it doesn't heat up with the girl.
No,
And when we've seen him in green screen flying around, there are no flames shooting out the back.
too
So,
expensive. Too expensive to do flames. Yes, but he then flies back to Cadillac Heights to return, and at an
where he's
unknown
just been.
yeah,
Right?
and at an unknown period of time, because I don't know if you Kimitsu, Meiko as Kimitsu turns up at Cadillac Heights. Has he flown from Japan?
Presumably.
So how long has Robocop been kicking about this neighborhood doing and Reed's there and everyone's there still injured as if they just come from the fight.
It seems instantaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then yeah, as you say, Kimitsu bows to RoboCop,
Fires Riptorn.
fires Riptorn
Yeah.
as the CEO, and then that's kind of the film. But at this point, I'm now wondering: does that mean that he's bowed and he's respected him? Does that mean that RoboCop is now the property of Kimitsu, whatever that is, or does he now
Or
not
he's
have a master? Who's going to look after it? Who's going to do his pay for his upkeep and his maintenance and everything?
Yeah, like the bow is kind of a nice Japanese gesture, and but we don't know what it means. Does it
Yeah.
mean like you are a honorable enemy and you have beaten me? Because he has been insulting the Americans and he deployed Otomo. Like,
Yeah,
he
on American
was
soil. He basically deployed a weapon onto American soil.
yes. Absolutely. He deployed three of them and a briefcase bomb and was coordinating with McTaggart, who's
Yeah.
massacring civilians in the streets. But suddenly he's a good guy because like, I don't know how we're supposed to read this. I think we're supposed to forget that he was involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and think of him as like secretly, an honorable Japanese, at the end. Um, but it's funny, the Wikipedia summary suggests, I mean, I know it's hard to believe Wikipedia is wrong about anything, but it suggests that the Japanese CEO basically promises to, divest himself of OCP and get out of Detroit and free RoboCop. And I'm like, that's not in the movie.
Is there is there a sort of a post credit scene I don't know about?
No. No, I mean, is there a scene that was
I
cut?
I tell you what, no, I tell you what it is, right? Because there are novelizations of these films. I don't own them. They are ones I wouldn't mind getting. I can
Naughty, naughty,
imagine.
Scott.
I know, bad collector. But I can imagine there's a whole bit like that's the kind of thing that would be in a novelization where someone writing it so it gets to the end of the script and is like, this doesn't end here.
This isn't resolved.
Yeah. And then adds in a chapter to be like, oh, well, I'll do a denouement that sort of explains everything away. Happy with that. Yeah, I don't know.
But
It's
I
not
mean,
in the
like,
film.
okay, the other thing is like the police have turned in their badges, but they arrive and they say they're cops to, the resistance, right? So they still identify as cops. Are they reinstated? Is there What's
Well,
the
who's
role of the
paying?
federal government here? Is
I was
there
gonna
an
say, 'cause
investigation into these mercenaries? And
who's going to pay them as cops? Because they were owned by OCP. They were contracted, so I don't know. It's all yeah. This is the thing where it's not resolved. You need that resolution for it to go back to some sort of. But it finishes with just RoboCop sort of saying like, I'll protect. He's only going to protect Cadillac Heights from now on. That's the only part of Detroit he is now going to look after. This one neighborhood. I
he's
don't know.
Daredevil.
Exactly. Yeah. Superhero status achieved. This is it. Um, And I mean, what we should notice is every film has ended on a shot of RoboCop so far, right? But doing different things. So I forget what the last line of this film is, but
Well, the last line of one is "My name's Murphy"
yeah,
to
call
the
me
old
Murphy.
man.
Yeah,
Two is he says to Lewis,
we're only human.
"We're only human." And I love the first line I pointed out, like it cuts to RoboCop, and it's like, you know, I mean, you can see it as the Christ story. He's
Yeah,
still, Murphy or however you want. I love "We're only human. We haven't defeated the bad guys."
yeah.
And acknowledging his humanity, that he sort of regained in the film. This one, he just sort of says, "My friends call me Murphy, but to you, I'm RoboCop."
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
I mean, like the point of one is he's Murphy. Why is the point like you just bow to me, you've conceded to me, and my response is like, to you, I'm Sir. Like, like I don't know how I'm supposed to take
My
that.
friends call me Bruce, but you can call me Batman. Like, yeah, I don't know what it's trying to say. The only time I've seen something similar to this, and they've done this thing, and it's done well-ish, is in Escape from New York and Escape from LA. Because in Escape from New York, when Snake Plissken comes in at the beginning, everyone keeps calling him Plissken. He says, "Call me Snake, call me Snake." And at the end of the film, having gone through everything, he sort of not so much regains his humanity, but recognizes, there are certain things in the world. So he actually refers to himself and says, "Call me Plissken." After the end, so when he's introduced in the second film, he goes the other way around. Sort of like, by the end of the second film, he sort of is done with humanity and actually brings about sort of a global EMP pulse and says, "Call me Snake. Welcome to the human race." And it kind of works in that way. This one, because he's a villain, he's like an anti-hero.
Yeah.
But like with RoboCop, it's kind of thing like, is he taking up a mantle as is he changed? Is he no longer just, oh, I'm going to reject my humanity and just take on the mantle of RoboCop as a protector? Oh, you've gone your full superhero. Now this is your full superhero narrative. You are now fully formed as just RoboCop. What, just patrolling the streets endlessly, fighting crime? Like I don't know. I don't know what position you're in anymore.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's the only thing I can understand is it's like, I'm Batman.
Yeah, that's
It's
it.
the like, yeah, I've been through this Murphy thing, but like I'm RoboCop, toys available at your nearest KB toy store.
Yeah, that's part of it. I'm sure of it. So that's how this film ends. I've always had this thing. Like, we're going to go on to the rest of the franchise in the future episodes. The next one will be our. We're going to do the pilot of the TV series first, and then we'll get to the cartoons, and then we'll get to the 2014 version and the Prime directives. But one of the things I always had this vision of, like, because Neil Blomkamp, yeah, was going to do
Mm.
of this, and he sort of had a proposal and stuff, and it was similar to what I always wanted to see. Because I always like they always sort of tease this idea of obsolescence, like, Robocop being superseded and stuff. And like 30 years later, I'm like, yeah, he should be, like, you get upgrades and all this other stuff, but there's still going to be this time of like, how exhausted does Robocop get? Like, he's still emotional. He must, he's still got psychological elements. Like, it must be exhausting. And so I've always been curious, as like, what do they do with him at the sort of like out of service? Like, there must be a point when they're like, does his skin age? Does he get like dementia? Does he start to have like at what point does like the bio element, the bio sort of biomechanic elements start to wear out? Like, you can replace a mechanical heart,
Hmm.
but at some point, like, the biometric, and I was like, I want to see a version like this is 30 years later or some version later, and he has aged, and like the skin sort of, is starting to go, or something's happening, and he's like, he's like, I'm out, like, I'm done, like a last mission, like old man RoboCop almost, like, not with a white beard, but like, do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I'd want it to really go dark, where it's like, I don't know what the story would be like, him really taking out OCP or something, or doing whatever it needs to be, but like that one last mission of something he can do, but like it would have to end with him dying. And having maybe like suffering from dementia, or having something where he's like, the brain just doesn't work anymore. Like, it's not the
Yeah.
mechanics
RoboCop
anymore.
with Alzheimer's is the
Yeah,
title.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I my reaction to the Blomkamp thing is like is always like, yeah, you're forgetting RoboCop 2.
Mm,
And I sort of hate ignoring sequels. I mean, I hate the like, well, we're gonna go back, but we're gonna include just Terminator 2,
yeah, yeah,
Um, and or we're gonna go back and just do the first two Superman. We're gonna make a sequel to those. I sort of feel like you kind of have to embrace it all. I think with RoboCop, this might be the one exception.
mm,
Um, but I feel like, I mean, if you're going to ignore other stuff, if you just jump from RoboCop to 30 years later,
yeah.
that feels very awkward.
No, but
Um,
I don't think I would. I would include all three. I'd include all of
hmm.
them, and I'd find a way of doing it. Include it all. But like, and I wouldn't have like a RoboCop 2. I don't want it to be like a. Could they do that in Prime Directives? I wouldn't have it be, oh, there's something else replacing him. Like, it might be AI. It could be like drones. It could be like, it could be this. It wouldn't be like a threat then. Like, it would just be like, oh no, you've been superseded for years. Like, you're almost like a novelty at this point. Like, you're just out doing whatever. Like, no one cares.
Well, one
Um,
thing I think would be interesting is if they, after Alex Murphy, um, made RoboCops that used some organic matter, but only
mm,
like part of a brain, and were really successful in repressing memory and personality to avoid the trauma and personality problems of Alex
mm,
Murphy. And so Alex Murphy is kind of like one of a fleet of, mechanical enforcers, and he's the only one who identifies as human, and he's, sort of obsolete. That might be interesting.
yeah.
Um, but I'd also be interested in whether in animated form or live action, a redo of RoboCop 3. Because I think
Mm,
1 and
mm,
2 are fantastic, and you really need to, you can get to the same place. You could do a Japanese takeover. You can do, what we're talking about, a big climactic ending and all of
yeah.
this, get, and ultimately get to kind of the same point where maybe, the city is operating like a normal city again in the wake of OCP's sort of collapse. But I feel like RoboCop 3 is such a weak entry in the series.
Mm.
So I sort of have a mixed view, but the thing is, you have to have some sort of RoboCop 3 set in that same initial time period, right?
Yes.
It feels weird to just go from RoboCop 1 to some sequel 30 years later. That doesn't feel right to me.
No, no, I agree, and I think this is the thing with like Lego sequels, like you need to have something there. But I think the reboot was a good idea, but I don't know. The Murphy story never felt complete. It's three,
Hmm.
and I'd always wanted to see more. And I think like go back to that more sort of gritty, violent, sort of satirical, edged version that existed. Anyway, we're getting quite over time now,
Yeah.
but let's start wrapping this up. But yeah, any final thoughts then for RoboCop 3? I think we've given it a nice, good grilling, to be perfectly honest.
I think we have, but I mean, I would say both of us sort of feel that it's not as bad as people think. I mean, it
No.
is a TV movie, I think it's a poor job. There's something in every scene that irritates me for the most part. Um, and just really bugs me. But yeah, it's got a limited budget. I mean, I see what they're doing. It's got ideas. It gets a lot of
Hmm.
stuff wrong, but I mean, it's not egregious. It's not hateful. It's not a good movie, to be
No.
sure, but it's not, a 1 or a 2 out of 10. It's it's poor, but it's not, the sort of train wreck that people say it is. It's watchable.
It is watchable. I mean, it's one of those things. The biggest disappointment for me of this film is, as you say, is the fact that there's a germ of something really good here, and you watch it and you go like, oh, this is sad because this could have been like something special. This could have been a trilogy of really great films, and it's that disappointment of going like what we could have had is the biggest problem I have with this film. Other than some of the really egregiously stupid decisions that get made, in the sense of like, in order to go, this scene's going to be badass, and it really, really isn't. So, oh well. Anyway, we will be continuing our trip down Robocop Road. As I say, next episode we are going to be covering the pilot of the TV show, that had even less money and a different person playing Robocop. Let's see how they take it to the TV screens. But for now, if you like what we're doing, please leave a review. Check out our Patreon. This would have appeared first on the Patreon, but go check out the Patreon for all this other stuff we're doing on there. So many other things being covered. Absolutely enjoying this, but there's so much other stuff we've covered that we've really enjoyed talking about.
An archive of tons of material.
Yes.
And if you're on the Patreon, thank you for supporting us.
Yes, really appreciate it. We really do. But for now, Julian, thank you very much for joining me in this Godfather level of trilogy. And
Well, 3 is always a problem.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And we shall see you on the next episode.
There's something very important I forgot to tell you.
What?
Don't cross the streams.